I'd like to call the study session to order. Jeff, you have some announcements?
Yes, Your Honor, I do. Todd Dickman, please, Recreation Department.
Yep. Just want to let everyone know we do have an event next weekend on October 21st. It's our Trunk or Treat, hay rides, and movie in the park. Trunk or Treat is being presented by the fire department, and if anyone wants to be a participant in that, they can contact the fire department, Amy, and she'll sign you up. And then we'll be doing hay rides in the park 4 to 7, Trunk or Treat 5 to 7, and movie in the park, Frankenweenie, starting at 7 o'clock that night.
What movie?
Thank you.
It's a cartoon that came out a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
All right.
The world hasn't gotten that weird.
Chief Lammers, Fire Department.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, everybody. Just want to let you know that this weekend, Saturday, is our annual open house at the fire department. There'll be lots of things for the kids, stuff for adults, fire safety stuff, so feel free to stop by.
What time, Chief?
From 1 to 5.
Thank you. I know she wasn't here this morning, but Azita, I know you sent an email. You might as well make the announcement on the hours this week for the library, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah. So the library this week will be closed early Thursday at 3 p.m. It will be closed all day Saturday because of the cross-country meets that are happening. So the News Herald Invitational is on Thursday, and Saturday is the Gable Richard Invitational. There's 12 high schools coming, and it becomes a parking logistical issue, so we'll be closed.
Okay, thank you, Azita.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the announcements I have, Your Honor.
I just have one, and if you don't mind, let's take a moment of silence for the victims of the attack in Israel. Thank you. All right, with that, 2-1, discuss addendum extending agreement for towing services with Rearview Towing.
Yeah, Your Honor, we'll have Chief Allen kind of sit up at the table and kind of
Don't be shy.
talk about this.
Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening, Chief. And who are you?
Ron Miller, Riverview Towing. So we've had Riverview Towing for 40 years. Ron, obviously, everybody knows he lives here in town, his business is in town. We're very, very pleased with him. Yep.
Yeah.
And the reason I brought it forward is he is asking for an increase, and if there was any questions that you had, we would entertain them. He's going from, currently we charge 110
To 150.
up to 150. What, storage is 25?
No, it's 20 now.
25 is what you want it to be. So he's at
Yes.
110 now and 20 storage. We want to go to 150 and 25.
Correct.
And this is another reason we like Ron's services. He doesn't do this for any other community. So he just does police towing for our city, and we appreciate that.
I was more of a comment, I just can't see the price list now. But, yeah, I mean, even with your increase, you're still at average or below.
A little below.
More charge. And just so people know, this isn't a fee that the city pays. This is what you charge the insurance
Correct.
companies, whoever is vehicle. So it's not an increase to our residents, through taxes or anything like that. Everything is billed.
Unless they get arrested.
Any other comments, questions?
Just a real
Lynn?
quick one, Ron. How many years has it been since there's been any type of increase?
You know what? I'm not sure about that, Lynn. I think a couple of contracts, I believe. But things have really gone up here in the last few
Oh, yeah,
years.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's
we
the-
appreciate you and your company. Yes,
Thank
we
you.
do.
Any other questions?
No questions.
One statement.
No.
Go ahead.
All my time here, we've never had a complaint about it.
No. And the raise is nominal.
Just so you know that.
Obviously, Ron, we think you're all doing a great job.
I appreciate that.
Obviously, like the proximity and always willing to help the city and our residents. I hear nothing but good things about it.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Can't get better service from what I understand.
Thank you.
Years ago, he even picked up this great big R off my driveway with his
Yes,
new
I did.
flatbed. All right, thank
Well,
you.
thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks for coming, Ron.
Okay, 2-2, discuss plans for special assessment for police protection. And this is here by the motion of the last council meeting to move it to the study session. I guess just to make it clear why we do this, or should we do this, and I guess reasons, pro and con of waiting or not waiting. So I'll just, now, does anybody else want to start before I do?
Well, Your Honor, I'd like to start by just saying, so in the 23-24 budget year, we reduced our transfer from the landfill. It was 2.8, it was 3.2, it went down to 1.5 million. So what I asked the department heads to do was to go through their budget and budget to actual. And so these things in the 23-24 budget with the 1.5 million transfer, that was to cover current operating expense. Nothing extra, just budget to actual. That was our actual expense. So the 4 mills represent that 1.5 million. So if we're not going to get that 1.5 million, then there would have to be changes to operations. So, and I'll leave it at that point.
So when we go through the budget process, is that where you will be able to determine where those operational changes could or could not be made?
Correct, Your Honor. That is nothing that's going to be done in sitting down with the department heads, going through all of the current operations and to review that, to look at different ways that we could accomplish city services. That's going to be an exercise. That's nothing that you do with a book. You have to do with sitting down and seeing what city services are important to the residents and how you can accommodate those with the current funds available.
So there is a process we have to go through, to make sure it happens. And my opinion is, and I could be wrong, that's going to be a timely procedure. And obviously, something like this, I think we need a lot of community input. If it's going to be some shared pain, whatever you want to call it, then we need a lot of input from the community of what their thoughts and goals would be. So,
Brennan?
go ahead.
So that was kind of what we were talking about with the education, getting that information out, letting people know the exact reasons, the steps, showing with pie charts, all of these different things that we've been working towards going together, getting that information out there so that everyone does know that we are making cuts on our end, we're trimming everything we can, we're doing this, that, and the other, and it's not that it was ever a mismanagement or anything like that. It was that the state required more for post-closures, the deficit elimination plan. We have we have to stop taking money at a certain point, and it's coming due. I mean, we all knew that the landfill wasn't gonna last forever. That was, everyone knew that. And so now it's that time, and so we have to start, easing those scales back in the other direction. And is that not what we had all been kind of going forward as a team with?
Oh, absolutely it was. But my thought was also, and again, maybe there wasn't the best way to get us to take a look, but that I knew it would work. Is that we're not going to know a lot of those things where we can cut until we start going through putting the whole budget thing together for next year. I think we'd have a much clearer picture then, and obviously the education would include all those things you said, but the part that would have been unclear is, okay, just exactly what is going to be the income from the royalties, from the gas plant. What kind of income can we expect from the dispensaries? All that stuff is still, we have an idea, but we just don't know. So I think by the first few months of next year even, we'll have a better idea of what we can expect, at least for dispensaries, because we know what the licenses will be. And that way the gas plant's online, at least producing some royalties, and see if they align with what we projected. And we can't do that until we have that information.
I thought Jeff had already made that pretty clear that we can't wait. Is that not where we were at with that?
Well, I'll just answer that.
I think it was at a point where this was my best recommendation of what I put out there. I figured that, there's this term in accounting, generally accepted accounting principles, as I put in the email, that, conservatism is you can only record revenue when it's ascertainable, that you know you're going to get it. And it's hard to build a budget with estimates because you have to pay with current expenses with dollars. And a millage is very estimable, it's guaranteed. We know that we can cover our expenses with a millage, and that was the idea, so that we wouldn't have to make large operational changes. We could use the millage to keep the momentum going. And when I talk about keep the momentum going, I'm talking about, the landfill going in the right direction, the public safety officers going in the right direction, the number. I put a hiatus to all the equipment this year, get through this year without major capital expense. I mean, we have things going on in water, but that stuff was budgeted, and we have to do sewer lining and infrastructure. There's some street sectioning going on. We had to do that. I mean, those are things you have to do. But at the end of the day, we try to curb back from all our capital improvements, and I just wanted to keep the momentum going, because I know, should that be one thing, looking at employee costs, then, that's a bad rabbit hole to go down, because now we're finally getting people on board, and if you let them go, you won't get them back. That's my real feeling.
Can you say that again?
The rabbit hole?
No, about the
The momentum.
cutting people back.
Like
I
right
said,
now,
if we
have-
had to.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to get them back. If you said, well, let's wait 2 years and see what the gas revenue's like. Well, in 2 years, those people aren't going to be available.
But the gas revenue, the first year, it's already spoken for the OPEB, right? Or-
Half of it,
So,
half of it.
we're
As it's
guaranteed
written.
400,000, 200,000 is going.
Yeah.
And you will not see any cannabis money.
Yeah, so I felt that the best way, because the city of a dollar, it gets 31 cents of the dollar that was put out. Of the 31 cents, public safety, 16 cents, so that gives you 15 cents to run the rest of the city on. And that's not a lot of money to run a city on 15 cents on a dollar, so I felt that a public safety millage, and I think there's some misunderstanding that, yeah, it's up to 4 mills, up to 10 years, but each year at budget time, it will be decided on what's needed to make the budget whole.
Which is also a public hearing, correct?
Yes,
So
and-
everyone
well-
will hear this, everyone will be involved.
And then it would be up to council.
Yep.
Does it need 2 mills, 3 mills, 4 mills? I think that the understanding or the concept of, oh, it's government, it's going to be 4 mills every year, that's not true. That's not true. And, I think this is a way to keep the momentum going.
And our police is one of the hardest things to both recruit and retain, correct?
Absolutely.
And through your chair to chief, Alan, we are doing pretty well. Everything is right where you want it right now?
We lost one, and we might lose another one, so we're going to have to
Already?
hire probably 2 more. But yes, that's
What's our
what we're
count
doing.
currently, chief?
We're at 22 right now. We're budgeted for 23.
Not counting the one we're losing.
That's correct.
Which again, the old budget was always 25, and chief was able to take it down
To 23.
and just pay for what we need to keep the officers from getting burnout and excess overtime and the whole process. I mean, there's a lot of momentum going there to get
Yes.
the number of officers that he brought in. So, this is, and there was some comments made that, the residents already took the burden of 3.22 mills. That's not true either. 1.47 was a sinking bond debt that was coming off the tax rolls. The voters agreed to move the 1.7 from the sinking bond to fund the firefighters' full-time health care. What really went on the residents was 1.74 mills, and that was for our refuge or trash.
Correct.
So it's not 3.22. So anyhow,
Aren't we making it a little difficult to hire for the chief if we're talking about layoffs and?
I'm not talking about layoffs.
And that's-
Maybe somebody else is, but I'm,
And that's why we don't want to get there.
That's a
And
clarification.
It's been the chief has been successful in getting help. What I wanted to make clear is the same feedback that I'm sure most of you got is that people just want to make sure we're dissecting the budget. We're making sure you look at this, we want to do it right, we don't want to do it fast. So we want to make sure that we look at it, has Jeff look at all those areas. Now, I remember some conversations in the past, as I said, I know doing it in February would be the perfect time because it goes on the next budget. But you also said, there's ways we can manage this if we vote on it next November or a special election before that. So what would the effect we have on the 23-24
We're good.
budget year?
We should be fine for our 23-24 budget year, which gets us through June 30th. The problem comes in our 22-23, we're fine, I'm sorry, I misspoke. 23-24 is when we get into the problem, because it goes from a $1.5 million transfer to a $500,000 transfer, so there's $1 million there.
And that comes up due
July 1st.
July 1st of
Correct.
2024.
Yes, correct. Now, I guess there's, we do have a rainy day fund, but that's usually bad business. That requires more reporting to the state and some other things, so.
So basically, we could, if we had to push, we could push it.
You could.
But let's lance this boil right off. How's that? It comes down to what a lot of us have heard out there is that the residents are misreading a lot of things. And we're in a situation where we can go ahead and go forward, and we're gonna roll the dice, that we're gonna get this up to 4 mil, or we're gonna come back with more of an actual of what we need and put that out. Because everybody I've talked to, and I don't know about the rest of you, but everyone I've talked to, if you put up to 4 mil, it's gonna be 4 mil, and I'm voting no. Now, my point is this, I don't wanna lay off any police officers, and I'm gonna fight it to the end. So it comes down to, what do I need to make all this occur? And I don't think we've gone through that exercise yet. And I think we need to before we put this out for a vote. Now, I've heard people say, oh, they trust Jeff, they're gonna vote yes for this up to 4 mil. That's not what I'm hearing. That is not what I'm hearing from people, no. The council can vote and say, hey, let's go forward and roll the dice. And I got a feeling we're gonna lose. So I'm glad that Andy pulled it back to where we could discuss it at this level. We need, as a council, to say, do we want to roll the dice, or do we want to come back out with an actual number and say, this is what it is, or we're going to be laying people off?
I
We want to do
pass.
that.
I want it to pass. That's-
I do too, that's my
I
concern.
just want our police
And it-
department to be secure.
And the other issue is, and I don't care what anybody says, again, let me announce, I'm not running next time, so I can give a care what Facebook says. It's becoming a political issue where we have people who have no clue how a city runs, or the effect, if you cut this, cut this, cut this, cut this, what's going to occur. They have no clue whatsoever, so now we're in the Facebook land of this is how we're gonna trim the city. And you four on the other side of the table will tell them, and they won't believe you, of course, that until you get on it and you find out the cause and effect of cuts and moves, I'm gonna go over and tell Adafina, you fix it right now. The other people have done absolutely nothing. They don't care what we've done. The same is with this budget part. They're all gonna squawk and all this other thing, but it comes down to what is the most important and the best thing for our community. And we gotta drop all that crap, and as a council, sit and look at it and say, well, let's vote, majority goes, how are we gonna go with this? And I'll respect whatever the council wants.
I think everyone around this table wants what's best for the community. We all have differing opinions on how we get there, but everyone here wants what's best for Riverview and our residents. And the police department is a huge portion of that because of our budget.
But when we
So
put
we
this
have to
message
figure
out, if I was a young police officer, I'd get the heck out of here too. And that's what's happening, and it's
That's what
becoming
we need to
political,
fix.
and we've already lost one.
That's sad.
And I don't like it.
Disappointed in hearing that today.
And
That is why I said at the very beginning, it shouldn't be during the election. If anyone that says I didn't say it, speak up now.
You did say it.
Because I knew this was gonna happen, and it's happening.
I think every week I heard it.
Yep, it's happening.
I agree with Councilwoman Gennady, same thing as, we all want what's best for the city. obviously, there's multiple ways to get to the same spot. And that's exactly, that was my thought too. We've talked to a lot of people over the last several weeks, and some use the word shared pain. Some need to make sure that, you look at your budget, as closely as you can. And I don't know, and then we're obviously going to have to lean on Jeff and, for those changes, if they're operational changes or that, and we don't, obviously, we want to, you don't want to prevent people from laying off. But I think we can get past, once we get past our budget, we have a clearer picture where we're going to go, and just exactly what that cost would be to our residents. If it's 2 mills for a shorter period of time, then that's what we go with. Or if it's, the 4 mills, a little bit longer, once we have some predictable income of the two we talked about already, the dispensaries and the royalties, then we'll have a better picture of how much we need. That's kind of my thought.
I think that you're talking about people's lives and employees and things like that.
Mhm.
And I think to make this a political issue, which I thought everybody was kind of, and it turned into a bit of a political issue, I think that shame on that. It shouldn't be that way. It's people, they're human beings, whether they're employees or their lives or residents, whatever.
Well, in my opinion, that's why we want to do it right. This isn't something we get a second chance on. I mean, if we have just some more information, that's all I'm asking.
Mr. Mayor, what you just said, we don't get a second chance on that. I know you were in one of the meetings that we had. We had meetings, 3 of us at a time. That was something that was shared in those meetings. We don't get a second chance. Just to make sure that I'm not hearing voices that my colleagues aren't hearing, Jeff, you asked us not to put this off, correct? When we asked you, you said you didn't have any way to get more money from. You gave us 3 options.
Yeah, and we talked about, when we brought Plant Moran in, there was 3 options. There was the millage, there was the Headley override, and there was, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't, I'm not sure what, I think that third thing was do nothing.
It was.
And what would happen
Right.
in 3 years. So, again, there's things that that expeded this up, which was, the post-closure fund. That's troublesome to me, when it used to be that we used to make a $200,000-$300,000 contribution to the post-closure fund. This year was a $13 million increase, and it's only going up because it's it's being based on things like PFAS and PFOS and, the inflation and all these different costs. So we currently have a letter of credit to keep us in compliance, but that comes to us with a cost. So, these things start stacking up, and it's like the perfect storm right now, and I just don't want to lose the momentum. And I thought this was...
That was a state increase, correct?
It was. This was
wasn't
nothing...
anything that
No.
was mismanaged.
And we were
State
completely
increased the number.
blindsided.
Okay.
And that number's going to go up again. I mean, I was just warned that it's going up again, so we'll have to increase that.
So going back to some bullet points that I wrote down for last Monday, if we put this off, okay, we don't have the funding come July 1st of 2024, would that affect our, correct me if I'm wrong on this, is it LAS, Advanced Life Support?
Well, I mean, all these things can be looked at, right? I mean, it'll have to be a...
No, I'm saying we don't want to lose that rate.
Correct, and we don't want to lose that. We're going forward with that, but as Councilman Workman said, there is, a potential Band-Aid with the rainy day fund. There's general fund balance, but that's a bad rabbit hole. I hate going down that because, you need that. So, you don't know what's going to come up. You don't know if the boiler's going to explode here, the air conditioning's going to explode here, and,
Goes out.
things like that. That's, what you use those things for. You don't use it for current operating budgets. Now, our new budget and finance director is very aware of Michigan class and earnings interest on our investments. That's going to be a nice little gain, where we're used to making next to nothing. That should be pretty good. I mean, it's not going to fix the budget, but it's going to help.
Right.
But, all those things take time to see what we're actually doing. And, what you're trying to do is you're looking at estimated revenues and seeing where they're coming in but you know what your expenses are, right? So you gotta cover those expenses. And that's what a millage does. It's estimable, it's collectible, it's guaranteed.
Did you not tell us, and I don't remember, I'm just asking, you thought that first year we might need all 4 of those,
Correct.
and then we could back off from that?
Correct. When we saw the revenue streams, right?
Right.
We have to know what our revenue streams are. Everyone's talking about revenue streams, but
Nothing's
I
operating.
haven't got, we're still, they haven't even commissioned the gas plant
Right.
yet. I'm hopeful they're gonna commission that gas plant before Christmas and start producing gas in the new year. What happens if they don't? What happens if there's issues when they go to turn it
Then
on?
this
that
is
it's
gonna
not-
take this issue and push it even more to the forefront.
Correct.
So, Mr. Mayor, last Monday when we were talking about this, and I understand why you wanted to pump the brakes on this, but when we were having the meetings with the marketing firms, did that raise any concern to you?
What raised concerns to me was, in the marketing firm, is, number one, the timing on the education, which had to obviously take place pretty quick, and then that education has to stop 60 days before the actual election. So I don't think Jeff has a good enough grip in the next 60 days, or whatever the time frame is, on all the options available without going with the new finance director, now that he's got help, to start looking at that stuff. So combine that with the feedback we're getting from the public is that it wasn't going to pass. So I want to make sure, I mean, if there's some pain, or whatever you want to call it, changes that have to be made for the 23, 24, year, then we'll have a much better feel on that once we've taken a closer look. That's just kind of the point I wanted to make.
Your Honor, if we're not going to listen to the public hearing, that's our job. We had a public hearing.
2 of them.
On this. And I didn't hear all positives on this thing. And if we're not going to listen to a public hearing, why are we having one? Why don't we just skip those things and just vote? Okay? That's because if people are feeling real supportive, they'll be here. If they're not supportive, they won't. How many people felt like you were supported when you were sitting through that public hearing?
It's something that Councilwoman O'Neill said while we were building up for this. She said, I don't think this is going to pass, and I agree with her.
So what's the purpose?
Because the CEO of the city is saying, I need money.
But we work for the city.
Right, we do work for the city.
And the public hearing was, it ain't happening. I can't remember 4 or 5 that came up and said positive.
Well, and I guess to your point is, we had a lot of feedback at both public hearings dealing with this, that they weren't for it or the timing wasn't right. So what I don't want to happen is so that means we're going to go through the process, spend whatever the amount was we allocated to educate the community. It comes, it votes, it fails, we just wasted whatever money we spent. Because we're going to get that with the landfill expansion. And I don't want to have to go through that again. I don't want to spend $35,000, whatever it was, to educate the community, knowing that they're going to vote no. I mean, and I don't think anybody's...
But in the environment that we live in now, where the dollar isn't taking us individually farther anyways, I mean, I think if we would have had this conversation, which I thought we did, everybody in this country is hurting right now from...
Everybody is, and we have to listen to them, and obviously I get accused of being, the big tax raiser and all this stuff from the last 2 villages that I fully support. So all I'm doing is listening to 95% of the people who are talking to me who say, we're not sure, we don't like this, and the common theme was, I don't know if you heard the same thing, is what is the city going to give up? And I said, that's not up to me what the city gives up, that's what we count on Jeff for in our other discussions. But that's what we have to count on. Now, I know this isn't going to be easy for Jeff, it's uncomfortable, but I've got faith in that he can find the right places to make some changes. And it's only temporary until we get, I'm not saying to not do this millage at all, I'm saying if we could, sometime after February, we need time to go through the whole budget process. That starts in February, March through April. Then we have a much better understanding of our incomes and what our expenses are going to be for that year.
How much does a special election cost us?
probably 2017 or something like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be a special election, it could be on, the November election.
Not if he needs the money in July 1st.
Well, that's where we have to look. I get it, we talked about the whole timing of this, I remember that like it was yesterday. But, and that was with no changes or status quo. And can we ask for more money from the people when we're at our status quo? I'm just trying to use the logic that was used against me when we, talked about the millage increase before. So I'm just saying, we just listen to the people, that's what it comes down to.
I really changed, I didn't like it in the beginning, and I really changed during the public hearing.
Well, did you think people were gonna come in doing cartwheels saying?
No, but I'm gonna tell you what, they were just, you were there.
I was
It was
there,
painful.
But that's what I've been hearing for 8 months leading up to this.
It's painful.
I mean, so, but when we're tasked from the city manager, that we're the board of directors, hey, I need you guys to support this. When you had a change of heart, Mr. Mayor, did you call Jeff up and say, hey, I want to pull this?
I did not tell him I wanted to pull it because we've had discussions just like everybody else has. And what I'm hearing from is that, there was a heavy importance early on. And I don't know if there was recommendations at the time that things we could possibly do, because there are things we could do or changes we could make, or you dip into the general fund, and obviously nobody likes doing that, as long as we could pay it back. But my fear is that we're going to put it out there, we have we're part of the primary, we all know people, have a good turnout in their primaries, you do a general election. I'm trying to see the writing on the wall. Oh, you held it in February when nobody votes. So I just wanted to have us the best timing, the best opportunity, and a hell heck of a lot more knowledge of where we stand financially before we ask for money.
Did you say if we had to, we could pull money out of the general fund?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have that money in the general fund? We do.
I believe, I think we have about $1.6 million in the general fund, which represents less than what the state likes. They like 20% of your annual budget in the general fund. And if I'm not mistaken, the budget, this annual budget was about 12 million, so they would want 2.4 million in the general fund. And so you got to remember, when you pull it out, then it's not illegal, to the best of my knowledge, what I researched, to balance a budget with general fund money. It's not illegal, it's possible, but you're under more scrutiny with the state when you do that.
And we're already under scrutiny for our elimination plan?
And we are,
Okay.
we are.
What do you think caused this perfect storm, Jeff?
Well, what I think caused it was, there wasn't a lot of analysis on the landfill, and as it was taking distributions from the landfill, it was taking more distributions than the funds it was earning, and it put the landfill in a really bad predicament from the standpoint of, you're taking more than it's earning.
And how long had that been going on?
I don't know, but I know at least 4 years, 5 years.
4 or 5 years?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not gonna.
So
city services were being paid with a credit card, and the credit card was in the name of the landfill. And when the landfill had to pay the credit card, there wasn't funds there to pay its credit card.
And that's what would happen with the general fund if we dipped in there to cover this?
Oh, you gotta watch that. That's gotta be like major attention to that.
Okay.
Major attention. There's not like, oh, let's wait till the end of the year. Let's monitor this monthly or.
Mr. Mayor, do you know if the school board is putting on for the November ballot, the sinking fund? How many millage points is that?
I thought I read 1.79 or 97. I can't, I might transpose those two numbers, but it's one of the two.
And it's a renewal, it's not a new tax.
Right, it's a renewal, right.
Residents won't look at that. That's additional, that's the way they'll look at it.
Why wasn't there small tax increases done in the past?
You're exactly correct.
There was not.
It was not. It should have been, this is something that should have been realized years and years ago, because sooner or later the landfill was going to close,
Right.
So there should have been, you know.
Small amounts at,
You're exactly right.
instead
That's
of the
what they
big one in the
done.
end.
That's what they done
And that
with the
makes
water.
sense, but we all know, because we still get it today, is why are you raising my taxes? We have the landfill. I mean, we're overlooking all that. It just, you know, we got a
The
landfill that's
landfill is
maybe.
never going to be forever.
And I agree, and obviously they're baby steps, but you know darn well, because we'll get that now, is because we still have the landfill, why are my taxes going up? Well, a lot of
Because we're
people
not
don't
taking any money
understand.
from
Well,
them.
and the reason not we're taking any money, because we're closed, why you look at it, we're closing 15 years prematurely. The whole impetus of this is we didn't get the landfill expansion, and we all knew this was going to be bad. I don't think, I had an idea it was going to be this bad, but we just knew it wasn't going to be good when the county said no. So that's the impetus, that's why we're moving in this direction, and then with the state increasing the post-closure funds, with not getting expansion, you talk about, you know, the perfect storm, now we have 15 years less to finance the closure of that, and they raised us $11 million.
Right, so you're
that's
not
kind of-
putting it, because we were, like you said, what was it, 2.8, 3.2, now we're at 1.5.
Next year, it's 500,000.
Right, so with what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, I mean, why didn't we do small tax increases the last?
Well, we all look at it, we could always go up and say, why didn't we do this in 1999? Why didn't we do this in 2022? Why didn't we do this in 2015? Who knows why? I know why, because we get accused of raising taxes when we didn't need to. I mean, maybe I've been around too long, been through this way too many times. I don't know what's going to happen. I have a really good feeling what's going to happen when we put this millage out, this public safety increase, and they're going to say no. I don't want to have to go there again. I don't want to lose cops. I want to make this, I want to make sure we have the best education to the public
We did go
that
back
we can.
a few years ago.
Pardon me?
We did go a few years ago. We turned down.
But a
Well,
million or two is a lot less shell-shocking than 4 for 10.
And I mean, I wasn't done with my thing.
Go ahead.
Talking about the small tax increases. Leading up to, I mean, we've been doing the landfill expansion since 2017, and we know that we had the workings of the gas plant, but that wasn't gonna make up any lost revenue from the landfill not going on for an expansion. You know, we're guaranteed 400,000, that is nowhere near comparable to.
I think one time they were trying to look at RIN credits and try to measure it on RIN credits. And I think that those estimates were larger when it was based on RIN credits. But the problem with RIN credits, they're really bad because you can make your hay when they're good, but you don't make any money when they're zero. And so a way to level off and make revenue budgetable, it was to work on a MMBTU, and that's how our royalties are paid. So if they make the gas and store it, because the credits aren't good, we're still paid. If they make the gas and send it in the pipeline, we're still paid. So no matter how they make the gas, and they have to make gas because they've got a big $75 million investment there, we're gonna get paid every time they generate an MMBTU. So that was, I thought, a pretty good way to reasonably estimate a level curve. Now, the more MMBTUs, the more volume they get, the more revenue we get. So that's the key for us to deliver good gas and as many SCFMs, which is the gas coming through the pipe to them, as possible.
Now, if, Mr. Mayor, if we take what we're talking about in the shortfall, we've already talked about the land across from the Ferndale Cemetery. Could we speed that up to see if,
Well, go ahead, I mean, it's possible, but I thought that property, the 40 acres over there and the other acres, that we're gonna make that part of the 2030 vision plan. So
not if we're using a credit card? I say put it up for sale now. I mean, if we
I
can
just got the wetlands quote, and that's within my authority to sign for that. We really feel it's important to have the wetlands calculated there so that potential developers know that. And now I'm looking at the appraisal.
Your Honor, aren't we going down that rabbit hole? Isn't this the discussion that we just said we would have over this when we put it on?
I'm just asking.
I think that's what we were talking about. Now we're getting into the, where we're gonna cut, what we're gonna sell, what we're gonna do. I don't think that's where this discussion belongs. The discussion is, do we want to have this discussion later and reduce where we're going, or do we want to go for the 4 mills, up to 4 mills? That's the discussion.
I understand that, Councilman Workman, but what I'm saying is, if that's already on the table, and that's something that he's working on to offload that could help to go the direction that it sounds like we want to go, because that would help him get some money for that 6-month period.
But the point is do we want to go down that road and discuss that at a later date? Or do we just want to go, okay, stick the same way we went, which I have no problem, I trust him. Do we want to go with the up to 4 mil, and Jeff, come forward with what we need? The problem is do the residents trust him as much as I do?
So the
That's where
other
you're
problem
coming
too is the sale of assets. You really
One-time
you shouldn't use one-time sale of assets for period costs. And period costs are costs that happen every period. Labor, healthcare. Sale of assets should be replacing assets. New ambulances, new police cars. You use capital money to replace capital money. You get in a bad rabbit hole when you start using sale of assets to balance budgets. That's really not a real good use of money. So we gotta learn to live within our means, and that's kind of where we should go. And that was the idea of the millage, so that we could live in our means. We're used to a certain level of services in the city of Riverview. I'm proud of Riverview. I love Riverview. Everywhere I go, I talk about Riverview. But there is a certain cost to those services. Where do you go in life where your services go down? Cars are more, phones are more, gas bills are more, everything's more. And we're to a point where we can't lean on any of our other funds to make up this difference. And now we're come to a point where, okay, do we like Riverview the way we like it? I mean, I love the assets. You know, I've heard things out in the community about close the library and stop recreation and close the golf course. And I'm looking at it as, wait a minute, we've got Young Patriots Park, which is a beautiful asset. I like put that up against a park I used to be in charge of. I think it does real well. I think we got a great library. I think we got a great golf course. I'm passionate about that. Get rid of those 3. What asset we got left? The landfill, which I think everybody in the whole world calls the armpit of downriver or whatever. I don't want to be known for just the landfill. I want to be known for our city assets.
Well, and what you just spoke of, the library isn't even 1 millage point.
You're correct.
So,
You're
I mean,
correct.
1 millage point is, correct me if I'm wrong, 388,000?
386,000, you are correct.
Okay, so that's not gonna do anything.
Yeah, but I mean, I just hear those things out in the community, and it's not on my list, you know, I want the city to flourish. I want this, you know, we're a bedroom community, you know, and I was talking with Todd today, and bedroom communities, they want bedroom things. They want bedroom family-oriented things. They want Summerfest, they want tree lighting, they want programs for their children, they want, you know, things for their family to do. And
Need
so,
more bedrooms. We need to sell that land.
Yes.
Put some
I-
more bedrooms there.
yep, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you.
So if we decide to hold off on this and say we're not gonna go forward right this moment, and we wanna wait until, say, the next general election, how does that financially change things as of right now?
Well, as I said earlier, we're good through June.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What happens in
And we're gonna
July?
be, the budget, the actual reports are coming out, and in July, we'll have a better feeling, good feeling, if we do a deep dive study here, we'll have a better feeling. But my fear is, unless we change operations, we're gonna be short.
Okay.
And how are we gonna do that? Do we
And it's-
find money from somewhere, or do we change operations to meet the monies we have?
And we cannot change any of the wording, so we couldn't now
Go back to two.
and say,
Two.
we're gonna
Right.
say, let's
Gotta
just
start
do
over.
2 mills for 5 years.
Gotta start over.
Completely
Gotta
start
start
over,
over.
and that would push us all the way to November.
Probably.
We'd have to
Okay.
start on it right
Yeah,
away.
and that's feedback we got from council, that 10 years was too long. So we need to, you know, look at that, and we, like I said, we have to stop the process, define anew if we want to go for anything less than 10 years, or if we want to change it up to 4. So, and actually, I think maybe a shorter term might be an easier sell. So, but,
You know-
we can't do this with the way it stands today. And that's why I recommend we stop this, start over, and then we just take advantage of the time we have to go through the budget and all the other anticipated additional revenues, expenses, all that stuff, and have Jeff take a look at it under a microscope. I think that's what we owe the people who want to make sure we do it.
Mr.
And
Mayor.
just trying to respond to the people of, you know.
Of course,
that
that's our
I'm
job.
hearing.
Hey, we definitely hear of them, right? What was the feedback last Monday? You said you got feedback from DCC. What was your feedback from them?
From DCC on this?
Yes.
I honestly don't remember.
Your Honor, through the record, the engagement letter for the PR firm was $25,000. We haven't spent next to nil of that. It was only one meeting, so.
Okay, okay, now you remember you're talking about, the feedback I got from members of the DCC.
Oh, members, I'm sorry.
Yes, that the people they've talked to, they weren't supportive of it. And obviously, several of them were business owners, because obviously it's going to affect everybody.
Of course.
Are those business owners in this community or
Yeah,
outside?
yeah, we have lots of members in Riverview that are part of the chamber businesses.
Right, okay.
So, yeah, so it's them. And, we listen to people from outside the city too, but the ones I pay attention to are the ones that do businesses here, or have contacts with them.
I mean, as far as the people outside, yeah, it's great. You get along with your neighbors and whatnot, but, this seems like it's an our problem, and people haven't been so willing to jump to our aid before, so I don't much care what their opinion is. Can I play devil's advocate for just a quick second? Let me see if I'm understanding this
Go ahead.
correctly. Because I'm, the only time things started being talked about changing was after the tabling discussion came about. At first, we had talked about, said, okay, this is what it is. Dude, I think we probably all said, pardon the language, but dude, this sucks. Like, just put it in layman's, this is not a fun thing that we're about to have to do, but it's kind of it's an impact. So let me go back through here. If we wait, we're basically going into the little emergency fund that the city does have. So,
Well, I don't know, and I don't know in what total, because it depends on what services are chosen to go forward with. That will determine what services are important to the city and the residents, and what are the costs of those services.
but you stated.
But there's no way to have what we're doing today
Right.
in July forward.
We probably have roughly half of what the state would like us to already have in that reserve. Is that correct?
Correct, to my knowledge, yes, sir.
Right.
Less than half, or like 3/4, but
Well,
anyways.
yeah, I think we have something like 12 or 13% if I do the math. And
The thing they have
they
an
want
idea of
20.
what cities actually have in their general funds, what the state expects is.
20%, 20%. And there are cities with 20%. I mean, there's a lot of cities with 20%.
So, and like I said, I'm just trying to go back through this. So let's say it's 75%. It's still not quite what the state would like. And it's okay, but it's, the way that I interpret that is we are looking to, we're not whole, so to speak, according to the state standards. But now we're gonna talk about looking into taking that money. Don't get me wrong, we all know this was, nobody wanted to even have this discussion, okay? Let me reiterate that yet again.
One more time.
One more time, and it's for a fact, it has to be said, nobody wanted this. But then, so, if we wait and we flood the residents with pamphlets and flyers and educational tools, or whatever it is that we're gonna do, we get longer to do that. If the feeling now is, no, we don't have enough time to properly educate, but we throw a bunch more flyers at people and things like that, is it gonna, all of a sudden, a light bulb go off and people are gonna be okay with taxes going up? Or is that just like an evil?
won't be okay with it.
Like, right?
Well, see, that's my point. When we make statements, like, we're not comfortable with it, we have to do it. And I think, go ahead, you finish, David, first.
Oh, no, that's just what I'm getting at, is we didn't want to do this, but it's, to me, it sounds like we're gonna dig in, we're in a hole, interpret that however you want, but we're discussing digging even further into a hole. So maybe later down the road, ultimately, people are okay with their taxes going up. I don't see it happening either way.
Well, I don't look at it.
I get both
I
perspectives.
don't look at it that way. I think it's to your point of, maybe, that everything's always a maybe. We don't know anything. But what I do want to rely on is our ability to have some more time to educate the community. Clearly, all this stuff, say, if we move forward, and whatever council votes for, obviously, I'm going to support. Whatever you decide, I'll do my best to make sure we do that. But I just feel more comfortable if we, instead of starting, let's say, tomorrow, and we have to stop talking about this in the middle of December, all the other time, that we can't do the educating, and from what I understand, there's no advocacy group around that will do the signs and the other promotion stuff that we cannot do. So I just want to make sure we have the best chance possible that when we do this, we can start our educational campaign, whatever it is, February, March, maybe before that, I don't know, we have to count on Jeff and see what the best timing is on that. But then we have a time where we can do those educational things we need to do. And I want to just put us in the best possible point to where it passes. Because I know we're going to get, as we always do, that if it doesn't pass, it's wasted money. I don't want to waste money on this when it's so important. Like I said, I want to make sure we do it right. I mean, we've been accused, the statements under the public hearing, more than one person says, what's the hurry? What's the hurry? Well, okay, I listen, what's the hurry? So let's reevaluate and not hurry this. Not that we need to take our time, because it's important and we have to make sure we do it right. But I want to focus on doing it right and not doing it fast. That's all it really comes down to.
I was under the impression when we first started talking about this, that we were kind of in a hurry because we needed to balance the budget for the 23-24 year. Jeff is trying to cut where he can. He's already made so many by combining, cutting, making them go to actuals instead of forecasting what they would assume for the year. So he's been working on that end and doing things behind the scenes that no one knows about, which we've been trying to tell as many people as will listen. We are trimming fat, we are cutting things down. And then we're told, well, we need to balance this budget, because if we don't have this amount of money to count on, then we're gonna get into this black hole of swirling around, looking for the funds, and that insecurity will be there. And as a city manager, we want to support Jeff so that he can have the money that he needs to make sure that our police department and our fire and all of our city services know this money will be here. Your job is safe. This is your livelihood, and we want you to know this is why we're fighting for it. And of course, I don't want taxes to go up. I mean, we're paying a mortgage already for, the bills that come in, so if it was up to me, of course, we'd never raise taxes, but then it would just constantly be a yearly, every single time voting for, do you still want these? Do you still want these? And we do have to make these tough decisions. It's like, yes, everyone's gonna say they don't wanna raise taxes, but also they want a police department that shows up in 3 minutes. They also want an ALS certified ambulance to be there when they need it. As someone who's used these services, they're very important and critical. And so, I understand both sides of this. Nobody wants to pay more taxes, but we always want the best of everything. So how do we get past that hill? Because, 2 weeks ago, we were all pretty much on the same page. Everyone was like, okay, this needs to be done. This is where we're moving forward. This is the direction we're going. Okay. Everyone agrees. We're going forward. Last week, all of a sudden, now it's pump the brakes. So I'm still having a hard time just kind of wrapping my mind around that abrupt change. We are hearing pushback, of course. There's always pushback when we're talking about this, and I totally get that. But I think letting everyone know the reasons and what's going on, and building that trust with the community. I mean, these are tax increases that should have been happening over, smaller increases over years that didn't happen. So can't look at the past going forward. How can we fix it? How can we have a secure city? I want everyone who works for the city and all the residents to know everything's covered, everything's good, and we like our city the way it is. I don't want to have to make cuts. That's like the last thing. And I don't want those rumors swirling and having our officers jump ship or other people looking for other jobs. Like Jeff said, we're never going to get them back. You have good people, you want to keep them. So I'm just,
So, and they're all great points, and no, we don't want to lose anybody. But my concern is, and I think it should be the concern of everybody, is the up to 4, use that, and the length of time. Our community is very uncomfortable with it. So all those things you don't want to happen will, if it gets turned down in February. Those, and there's just, that'll happen. We can't stop it. So all I'm recommending is, and council, you can put your 4 votes together and do what you want, and we'll all support it.
There's 7 votes.
Well, there is 7 votes, but
Majority vote.
the point is that we'll do whatever the majority decides. My still concerned is that it's going to be a no vote.
and I understand that, and that's why we're having this discussion now. I just wish we would have had this discussion a month ago.
2 months ago when we started this whole thing. That's it.
Well, that's before we started getting that. I know you're all coming after me.
No, not at all.
I get it.
Hold on, not at all. I'm worried that we got a guy, I'm worried that we got a guy we said we trust. I'm trying to bring up every possible scenario here. I don't care about anything other than doing what we got to do that's best. I'm worried that we said, hey, we trust him, we agree, and I'm not a body language. You don't seem thrilled, okay? You don't have to say your job, you serve what we decide. I get that. But I'm just saying, I'm worried that we are going to procrastinate and we're going to end up in the same spot. I don't know. This is just... this is what it is. And no one's coming after you. I just want to be sure that when we leave here, I want it to be like, we crossed every T, we dotted every I.
Absolutely.
That's
I
all
don't
I'm
think we've
saying.
done that until he has the ability to go through the budget. And I don't want to, we listen to what you say, and obviously we pay attention. And I think your whole point is you don't want to make the big personal changes. The main thing that's really is different, I guess you want to say it is going through we're all on the same page, we're going to go through this process. We start the process, we have 2 public hearings where we just got beat to death, that's a wrong thing to do. I listened to the people, and now I'm the bad guy. I can take it, I understand. If I have to be the bad guy to make sure in my world that we have the best chance to get us to pass when we need to. Sure, there will be some pain in the meantime. Again, we don't want to lose the library, we don't want to lose police officers, firemen. None of us want to do that. But I want to make sure that we can continue past, next year's whatever issues we have. I want it to be in a good spot for years 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. And the only way we can make that happen is, instead of going for the 4 mills 10 years, which Jeff recommended, is we go through this budget thing, and wait for feedback from here, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, Your Honor, this 4 mills to 10 years, that's decided every single year by the people sitting around this table, not me. The elected, that the constituents and residents put you in. So if there's a year that I come and say, look it, and all of you have learned to look at that budget over the past few years, you get it, you understand it, so you can ask me numbers and say, hey, wait a minute, the police budget went down, or hey, the fire budget went down, or DPW went down, what happened, and why did this one go up? And then you can decide, with combining and compiling the numbers, what mill we need based on that. So you have the control of the finances, because every year at budget time, that millage will be decided upon by the elected, not me. I can tell you what I need to operate the city, and you can tell me, yeah, we're gonna go forward with this number, or no, we're not, and make changes.
Did you look, you've looked behind every rock, right?
I looked behind a lot of rocks, but now, what I did was, I asked, as I said earlier, I asked the department heads, because we got such big swings at the end of the year in departmental budgets, I said, we're not budgeting that way anymore. Budget what you need. Budget to actual. What did you spend, what do you spend, and let's budget that way. And that's what we did. And we were able to cut a lot out of the budget by doing that.
That's what you did, right?
There's no fluff in that budget. Will we spend everything? I don't know. But could we? Yeah, I'm thinking we're gonna spend everything in our department budget right now. But I didn't say, oh, let's start reorganizing the departments and only operate this. Because when you do that, you lose service. So are our residents ready for, I think that public safety will tell you, there's a huge difference between a 3-minute show-up time and a 6-minute show-up time.
That's life and death.
It's a huge thing if you show up with 3+ officers or 1.
Or if you
And
show
waiting
up,
on Wyandotte or Trent to show up.
or if you show
So
up
again,
BLS or BLS.
and why, and I hate this, why are you punishing public safety? Why are you putting everything on their back? I could close the rest of the city and not have those mills. That's how big public safety represents of the budget. It only makes sense. They represent 53% of the budget, so why wouldn't you alleviate, which other cities are doing? This is not illegal, this is not uncommon. If you look at other surrounding cities, they've had public safety villages. This is normal.
Brownstown just passed
Yeah,
one.
this is normal. This is not something that I've, figured out with witchcraft. I mean, this is normal. And
Seriously?
I know that police departments, especially around here, it has been an issue, both attracting and retaining. And now we seem to be in a good place, and I don't want to go backwards. So I understand the 4 for 10 is a huge problem. And I don't want to go for this and have it fail, but I know we've also looked into everything we can, and we've cut many things. So what is going to change and make a big difference in the next few months?
I know that we're going to earn some interest, as I said earlier, by the budget finance director moving our investments that you guys approved. We're going to earn 5% on investments. That's going to be big.
That's huge.
That's big, but I don't think it's still a mill, but let's see if it is or isn't. But anyhow, at the end of the day, all I'm trying to is keep city services going. Keep the police, keep the fire, keep the recreation, keep the library, keep the things going. This is what I need up to 4. Would 4 be the first year? Absolutely. But then the gas revenue kicks in. Then we can look at our investment, then we can look at the canvas, then we can look at additions to these businesses and the property taxes. Those are all the things. I'm looking for that soft landing to keep the city going to the services that, now, if people say, you don't look hard enough, okay, so let's just assume that they say, oh, well, you could pass 2. Okay, so what is $772,000 of cuts we're gonna make? Because that's what I would have to do, being 2 mills short. What do you want to cut for $772,000? Because that's what it would be with 2 mills.
And that would be in July, once that,
Well, I mean, you can prolong it a while, but you're gonna have to be making those moves.
Probably could prolong it to November.
Yep,
Okay.
but,
You do have to remember, you could end up with 3 new council members in a month.
hey, I'm working with you. I mean, that's who I'm working with, and that's who I'm in. If I wasn't in, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. I mean, that's, I believe in our staff, and I believe in what we can do, and, everyone says, that's okay, we can live without this or live without that, until they need it. And then the phone's gonna be why don't I have these people here? Why don't I have this tree moved off my front lawn that
And
fell in
that's
the
my
storm?
whole concern.
Well, because we don't have staff to do that.
Then they're done.
I know it. I've seen it. I've seen it. I've lived it in a different city for a couple of years, and it was just for a couple of years, and then things rebounded, and, and I've seen this happen before, and I've been down this path, and I know, and it's a heck of a lot easier to get it up front, keep it going, and then wait and see as this comes in. And the difference is, we're going to monitor it closely, very closely.
And the public will be involved in those discussions as well, correct, each year?
Sure, well, yeah, they'll have public hearings, and you guys will decide.
Well-
Jeff, what do you need? How many mills do you need? And show it to me. I'm from Missouri, show me in this budget why you need it.
Prove why you need 3 this time.
Yeah,
Prove it why you only
2.
need 2. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't think that's getting out there. People are just assuming, oh, it's government, it's going to be 4
It's
mills
four,
for
it's
10
over
years,
4.
and then you're going to ask for a sunset clause, you're going to do this, do that. No.
And, Mayor, I just wanted to let you know, I'm not attacking you in any way. This is my first go-round with one of these. So I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm hearing things as
They're
well.
perfect, yeah.
And so I'm trying to just explain things so that anyone watching will learn what I'm learning. So I don't want you to feel attacked in any way, shape, or form. And I'm actually happy that this discussion is happening, because
Oh,
this,
it's a good discussion, but, and I don't know if we're close to wrapping it up, we need some direction. So we get consensus tonight, and are we gonna move forward, or do we pause it? So, I mean,
Something has to be put on the agenda.
So
Since
we
it
have
was
to
taken
have
off,
something for next Monday, either, well, I mean, if we're gonna move forward, we don't do anything because we're not gonna
Right.
pause it. Or do we put it on there to put a pause on it?
And I will just close with one last statement. You make money legally 2 ways. Either increase revenue or you decrease costs. And a lot of people like to decrease costs because it's identifiable until they live without the service they need. And then it becomes a major issue.
Right. So I guess we would need some type of consensus, on who would be for putting it on the, well, let's say, to not put it on the agenda, and just the process continues.
So to leave it on February, so is that what you're
To
asking?
leave it on February would be a good way to put it. Nobody? Well, there's your answer, we don't know.
Well, without taking it off, I think it's got to be on.
Yeah.
Mike? Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think that's how it works.
Since it was.
Yeah, I think you should take some affirmative action.
Yep.
to
If
deal
there's
with
no vote to pull it, then it's a vote to keep it.
it. Yeah,
Consensus by silence. Consensus by silence.
yeah.
Okay, just so I understand, if there's no vote, then the process moves forward for February.
I think that's my understanding.
What would you feel comfortable with, Mr. Mayor?
Personally, I feel comfortable with, delaying it. And for me, it'd be so much easier and with so much more confidence of what we actually need. Now, to me, if he comes back and for whatever number he comes up with, say if it's 4 up to 10, then I'm all for it. If he says 4, maybe the first 2 years, then we adjust it, or, I know usually we vote on it every year, but I'm one of those, if you tell me 4 mills, up to 4 mills for 10 years, it's 4 mills every year for 10 years. That's the feedback I got, and that's probably how I feel, because, how much people trust us. So I would just feel so much more confident and just look people right in the eye and say, this is what we have to have.
I would recommend always doing that.
And so, but to his point is, I'll be able to tell with a lot more confidence, this is what the cost would be. And I'm sure he's going to give us some more examples as you go through the budget. And, we do our best to not affect anybody. And then, if the first year's rough, if we got to dip in the fund, I'm not comfortable. But if it stops us from having to lay anybody off, and it adds a little more guarantee that we've done our homework, and it helps us get the millage passed. I'll just say November. It gives us a lot more time for education, and maybe we say stuff like, well, you see, you had a call for a police call or a fire call. They say they got there in 3 minutes. How would you feel if it was 6 or 10? Because that way you can really you have to put people in the position, because obviously we all know a lot of people elect us to do a lot of this work, but sometimes there's not a reaction until we make a move they don't like. And I think that's what the reaction was with the public safety, or the public hearings we had, both of them. And we actually, they let people even, well, during they went on for 5 minutes. I don't think anybody, maybe one, spoke in favor of it. So, and that's what scared me. I mean, that's, if you're talking about, your epiphany, that's what, got me really thinking. And not that, I didn't tell Jeff I was gonna do that, because with my discussions with him, we learned a lot of options he had. And I support him for not wanting to make these cuts now. I mean, just have this, we want to call it the status quo, that's fine, but maybe that's not the feeling of the community. And that's just kind of what I wanted to pass on to him and you guys, is that this, the feedback from the community is that you really need look at this under a microscope. Just make sure you say turned over a lot of rocks. Who knows if there's any more rocks? But but we'll have a much better feel on the income. I know I'm repeating myself, on the royalties for landfill and the cannabis. Who knows? It's, if we go for we put a stop on it, go for a shorter term. If we have our 5, 6, 7, wherever the dispensaries are, we have them, and by that the gas plant's fully operational. Maybe you don't need to go anymore after 2 years or 3 years. That's the stuff that he has to look at. And I don't know if he did all that for this time.
I mean, and I understand what your concerns are. It's actually, through this whole process, from the first meeting that I attended, our colleague sitting next to you, Councilwoman O'Neill, she's kind of been beating that drum. I mean, I know some of us have talked to her, and she's, let's be honest, she's closer to the police department than any of us. And she's like, and she has a good read on the residents. She's like, this isn't gonna pass. This isn't gonna pass. I know she shared that with some of us.
Well, and now that you say that out loud, then you called her out. That's a conversation I had the week before with certain in my office. And she spoke from the heart that, she does have a good feel for the community. She is closely related to it. And when somebody like that tells me, scares the living daylights out of me. She may have a better feel with a different group of people than you have or I have. And so it's pretty clear we're all hearing the same thing. And I just can't ignore it. I can't let that go.
What about Councilman Workman? What's your opinion on this?
I like to win. I don't want to lose.
Well, we have something in common, sir.
I think, no offense to my colleagues, and I'm not playing this because I ran the place, I think you need to be educated too. Jeff has to educate you people on what will happen. Remember when I said the landfill goes through, I said, you have no clue what's going to happen here. I think all of you remember that. I said that when I'm during a debate. I told the people, I said, you have no clue what's going to happen. And everybody sat there and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and I'm going, it ain't going to happen. I think I have gained a lot of respect from my colleagues, especially you, I got to tell you the truth. You're the only one that hasn't BS'd me, straight up. Every other one hasn't, but she and Councilman Norton made a comment that we have kind of the same personality. I don't mean to insult you. But the point I'm getting across, I watch you guys learn, and I watch you come forward with what you're going to do. And I'm getting more comfortable in leaving, okay? My point is I really do think you need some one-on-ones with Jeff as soon as he gets a good grasp, because he's learning too. Don't forget, we've been through this once before. And I took a heck of a beating doing it. And there are things that possibly he hasn't thought of that he can do, can't do, and it's not my job anymore, thank God.
Right.
I can sit back. But there are things he can do. But I think to make a valued decision, and he can do it fairly quickly when he's going through the budget, he can tell you people what he's going to cut. I could tell you, and you're not going to be comfortable. I'm just telling you straight up.
Right.
Now, as far as I'm concerned, there is no excuse to cut police officers. If you recall back then, back when I was running, I did not cut police officers. Now, I got accused of going to cut them, but there's some things you have to do in the midst of your negotiations. They weren't real happy with it. But the point I'm getting across is there are some very difficult decisions that could be made. Do we want to make them? And I think you need to know what they are. I really do. Lynn will tell you, I was very upfront with her on what I was gonna do when I was the manager. And they knew what I was gonna do. There was no doubt in their mind what I was gonna do. So that, I don't think we as a group have gone through that exercise. We had a rocky start as a council, and I think with the new ones coming on, we may have another rocky start. But I've got enough confidence on what's going to be left on the council that we can work our way through it. So I think we need an opportunity to do that. I really do.
Thanks. And what I did say, I said, you and Councilwoman O'Neill, you both have the personality where you're not going to candy coat anything or BS anything. So, and I appreciate that, you know? I don't want somebody giving me rainbows and unicorns.
So, Jeff, so if we do end up deciding to postpone this, and we do move it from February to November, how do you feel about that? Financially?
Well, I mean, we're gonna have a little gap, and we're gonna have to see what we can do in that gap come budget time.
Of course.
And
I
take
know
a
you
look
can't
at
see
all
the
the
future.
numbers, and, you know, I have to turn in a balanced budget, and we'll tell you right off the hop that if we don't turn in a balanced budget, it doesn't work with the state.
Nope.
Correct.
So we're gonna have to look at that and see what adjustments can be made. I mean, we're gonna look at everything. I know Dean he was kidding me one day, he says, Jeff, why don't you go through all this, and you don't need 4 mills, you really need 6 mills, then what happens? And I said, didn't think about that. He said, well, be careful what you ask for, and so, you know, I don't think we need 6 mills, but, you know, he was city manager longer than I was, so maybe he knows something I don't know, but as of right now, but, you know, what scares me with the whole thing about, you know, once you start down that rabbit hole of cutting, it's hard to turn
Selling
that.
property.
Yeah, I mean, you look at cities that do that, and the first wave of people who move out, they do okay in the house sales, but everybody else, they do horrible. Property values drop. It just, it's
ready. They're coming.
it's just a mess, and I don't want to be that person, you know, that's what the ideal was. Let's keep this going so we don't turn into that community, you know, and it's a unique community. It's got a landfill, it's got a golf course.
You could have a special election before November, though,
We could.
correct?
We could.
You don't have to wait.
No, you don't have to, you don't, you're exactly correct.
That was gonna be my follow-up question,
sometime
is if we
before
couldn't make
July.
it till
So if you
November.
had it in May.
Yeah.
You could have
Yeah.
it, you could have it in May.
special
You
election.
could have it
But I know it's a little
April.
tough.
Well, and
April, I
that's
want.
fine, I said, but.
Because that's the time the
obviously,
budget is due.
the way I look at it, we're gonna have 2 new council people. We're not gonna have 3, we're gonna have 2.
And you're not going, if it does make it to the ballot, it's not going to be less. It might, time-wise, it might be less, but you're still saying you
Up
see
to
that.
4, like a 4 for 4.
Well, if you do the study and decide what services you don't want, and you drop that millage down based on the services that you identify that you no longer want, it could be less. But you gotta remember, any change to the 4 and 10, it starts the whole public hearing cycle over
But
again.
if we agree to tell you, put it on the budget for next week, then that kills that, so you'd be starting over anyways.
I'm sorry.
If we agree to tell you to just.
Yeah.
You're gonna be rebuilding it anyway, so that's
Correct.
null and void, correct?
Correct, the public
Okay.
hearing. And somebody asked me, what is that? And that's been like $7,000. Or don't hold me to the exact number, but the mailing twice and the printed material twice, so I think it was $6,000 or.
And that's all we have tied into it right now.
Yes, and very minimal PR stuff, 1 meeting, so that's not much, but.
So are we open to delay it, I guess is the best way to say it, until sometime after February?
Do you wanna call for a head count?
And we need something so that we know the direction to go, so.
All right, well,
I'm favorable of just holding off, but we move as fast as possible.
I agree.
I don't want to wait till November, so I'm okay with waiting till April.
We
It's
can
gotta be
move
by
it.
April, because the budget's due by June, so
We
we'll
can
have
move
to
it
have
to
it
April.
And
done.
I'll give it to you.
Chuck?
If the group is okay with April?
All right, I got my directions. All right, engineering reports, I have to use this.
I'll tell you this, I do look forward to another public hearing.
Start with the
Once
engineering
we come
reports, Mayor Fleming.
So they can tell us what they
I
want.
wanna hear it.
Okay, Dave, I guess you're up for,
Let's try not to wait so long.
Two of us tonight.
Okay, all right.
Let me give you an economic development report. Also, Mike Rancic from our operations manager, our company's here. He's had a lot of experience with the issues we're facing at the crossings, so he can share some of his experiences, what we're dealing with.
Okay.
First, a whole bunch of small.
Why don't you guys move your chairs up here?
Oh, guys, move up there?
Yeah. It's okay, you sit wherever you need to.
First thing I want to point out, we did have two investors show up this morning with concept plans, new developments. They asked me not to divulge anything yet because they're still in negotiations for property. And so we met with them today, but both of them are looking at spring, doing something in the spring coming out of one home.
Are you allowed to tell us like a general area of where they're looking?
Yeah, one's an expansion of an existing building, the other one's a smaller parcel in the industrial area.
All right.
Okay. Second item is the DCC. I did see an email today, their small business program is getting started. I did see requests for some information. Nothing been directed at our department to provide anything yet, but they start giving us a heads up. They'll be approaching us.
And is that the one where they ask for more information for businesses eligible for the $10,000 grant? Was that something else?
Yeah, I think there's another one. This is they had like 4 or 5 bullet points to it. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was information we could provide. And the third item is the Planning Commission is wrapping up the master plan. I think they're going to hold a public hearing in December. I did understand that council wanted to be the adopter of the master plan. If it does, we have to get a resolution out that you want to take that responsibility away from the Planning Commission.
Have we done that in the past?
What?
Like we take over the adopting of the plan, or?
Not in the past, never have. There was a discussion at one time, someone made mention, so I just want to point out, if the council does want to adopt it, then we'll do a resolution if you decide you want to do it. If
But
not,
otherwise, they'll just recommend to us?
no, they'll recommend to you if you want to do it. Other than
Yeah,
that,
that's
they
what I'm
will
saying.
adopt it outright, yeah. But they do want to come and meet, they are going to come in from the study session before they adopt it and bring it to you and explain exactly what the plan says and give you an update. They also expressed interest in having kind of an annual meeting with the Planning Commission, the council, and the ZBA, so all 3 boards are on the same page. And they're all making different adoptions, they're all enacted by different state laws, but they want to make sure, it's usually pretty common practice in places to make sure the policies of the council is being seen inside the planning efforts, and then in the zoning recommendations also, the ZBA is making decisions based on council policy. And that's my 3 big things. And then I'd like to say, I'm Mike Rancic from our office. He's our operations manager for every departments. In one of his previous lives, he overran a place and they ran into these issues like we have with the crossings. And he can give you his read from an outside standpoint, what's
But
going on
why don't
there.
you give us the 30,000-foot view of what the issue is at the crossings?
The issue of the crossings is they made quite a few improvements. Some were really big improvements because of a building fire and boilers that weren't properly installed. So they focused on the big items. Now they're starting to get into the smaller items. Their strategy was to get the unoccupied items fixed up and certified first. That way, when they get into the tenant units, they have someplace to move somebody if somebody wants to move. That was their strategy. They bought the place in March of 2022. They inherited a big mess from the previous owners, and that owner bought it from somebody before that in 2015 or 14 or something. They inherited a big mess. So it's been going all along. This is the first company we've seen actually trying to push forward to resolve some bad things. So, but I might take a look from the outside to see how our inspections were going, some of the concerns we have, if we go too far, and things like that. So that's why I have Mike in front of you right now. He's got the experience I don't have dealing with this.
When you say move a tenant to another place, like say their apartment is flooding, dripping, ceiling, whatever, and they move them to a new place, it's of the same price range, correct? I'm hearing
don't know
complaints that they're offering them new places, but it's double rent that they can't afford.
It might be, but it's not the city's purview to
Right, and then,
Get into that.
I don't know if you're gonna get into this.
That's
The point is, because a lot of this is landlord-tenant issues that we can't get involved in. And my assumption is, we take care of all the inspections, the coding, those types of enforcements, but we can't get in between a tenant and a landlord if there's some issues with rent and all that other stuff.
If we Mike's going to get into what happens if we do find a unit that's substandard, and what can happen from our standpoint, and what our, where we can start.
No.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Just by way of background, just so everybody knows, I spent almost 20 years with Ypsilanti Charter Township in Washtenaw County, just west of here, as their community development director. I started as their police service administrator after I retired from Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department. I ran their police contract, and it kind of morphed into all this other stuff. That particular municipality is extraordinarily aggressive, going after blight and property maintenance issues. When I took over administration of building planning and code enforcement there back in at the end of '07 going into '08, there was no rental inspection program, so I had the opportunity to work with staff to implement the very first one. And they've got well over 10,000 rental households, so significantly larger rental community than you have here. But in terms of this particular complex, it's not, I don't want to say it's not unusual, but unfortunately it does happen. I would preface all this by saying myself and the staff for our company who work for the city have a tremendous amount of empathy for the people living in those substandard conditions. No one should have to live like that, regardless of who you are or what your circumstances are. Having said that, the question you asked about, I think I heard a story, I don't know if it's accurate or not, it's just anecdotal, that someone had roof water leaking in from a roof leak and the carpet was saturated and there was an offer to move them to another unit. And I heard it was at a higher price point. I don't know what the facts of it are, that's just what I heard. But the city and the building official who acts under purview of state law has absolutely no authority to dictate to that private property owner or to those private citizen tenants what rent they should pay, whether or not they, we can appeal to them. We feel you have a moral obligation to relocate your people and make it right for them, in other words, according to your moral compass. But we have no authority to force them to do that. Nor do we have the authority or the right to force a tenant to accept an offer like that. What we do have the authority to do is to enforce the Michigan Building Codes and the International Property Maintenance Code, which the city of Riverview has adopted as its own. So we enforce your property maintenance code, which references the State Construction Act, the building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing codes under state law. Our responsibility, running on behalf of the city, the rental certification program for rented housing, is to inspect them on a cyclical, on cycles, I have a hard time saying that word. Cyclical, thank you. And here it's every 3 years, to inspect them and measure the condition of the property against your property maintenance code, to call out and cite code violations, to give them a reasonable period of time to correct and make repairs and correct those code violations. And then once all that is done and all the fees are paid for the services that have been rendered, to certify them for that 3-year cycle. Typically, when, in this particular case, in talking with Jennifer Dufour, who works here, has worked here for quite a while, she is upset, as are our staff, as am I, that we've been dealing with this particular complex, trying to get them recertified for the next 3-year cycle for over a year now. We understand, and I looked into the history, that there has been at least 3 ownership changes within the last decade. The fact that that's occurred and there now appears under this new owner is faced with not insurmountable, but very heavy deferred maintenance, That didn't happen overnight. It's occurred over a very long period of time. They have to decide, are they going to be the ones to repair it and make this a place to be proud of in the city of Riverview, or are they just going to kick the can down the road and do what the previous owners have done and flip it to try to make a profit and move on? It appears, I can't speak for them, and I'm reserving judgment. I've learned to reserve judgment in these situations for the long term. It appears as though they are making some substantial financial investments. As Dave alluded to, they originally wanted us to just wait and only inspect the ones that they're flipping and renovating, because they're all shiny brand new at that point, right? And they'll pass inspection. We typically do not like to do that, because the people living in the units that have issues deserve attention. So, after talking with Jan and our inspector and everything, we're on a very tight schedule. We're going building by building, and there are 13 buildings on that site, according to these records, which I believe is accurate, 276 units, plus about 100 additional spaces that have to be separately inspected, mechanical rooms, boiler rooms, laundry facilities, so on and so forth. The first four we have gotten through, 4 buildings have been inspected. The next group, there's a group of 3 that are scheduled for completion by the end of this month. The next group of 5 are scheduled for completion by the end of November.
Do one building a week, is that what it is, something like that?
Approximately, yes,
Right.
according to the dates, the due dates on these. And then the final one is the first week in December. That will not end the process. At the end of this process, we will have a long laundry list of code violations that need to be rectified. And they'll be on a reasonable timeline to be able to do that. Typically, anything that is not life safety is a 30-day turnaround. Life safety things, like for instance,
Mold? Heat?
well, now heat is a problem. Your code, your property maintenance code, I don't know if you've had a chance, it's really enthralling reading. But if you do look through it, there are several points of interest in there, one of which is heat. Habitable spaces have to be maintained at least 68 degrees, but only during certain months of the year. It starts in either October or November and runs into late spring, I think April or May. The same with insect screens on windows. It's the opposite. It's the warm weather months. There's other numerical markers for things like hot water at the tap. It's got to be a minimum temperature. It can't exceed the maximum so that a child or others wouldn't get scalded, so on and so forth. So we're looking at all those things. And we will go back and do re-inspections at their cost until, and continue to do so, until all the code violations have been cured and all the fees have been paid, and then we can certify them. Now, the certification process, taking as long as it has, does not buy them additional time into the future on this cycle. The 3-year cycle starts the date of the initial inspection, whenever that was scheduled. So they may complete in '25 and be due to begin again in '26. I don't have those dates in front of me, but that's likely the case.
Okay. Thank you, that's a lot of helpful information.
Sure. As far as some questions were raised to me about evictions and whatnot, our staff and the building official acting under state law has no authority to put anybody out of a unit. We're not in the business of putting people out on the street. Even in the worst-case scenario, where the building official actually decides that the code violations are so severe that he or she must condemn it, we'll placard it as condemned, unfit for human occupancy, which puts the tenant on notice that it's not safe for you to live here, but we don't have the authority, nor would we ever forcibly remove anyone from their dwelling. Now, that rolls over to the earlier conversation about what is the legal and moral obligation of the property owner. That's a private civil lease contract between parties that we never get involved in. We try never to meddle in it, but trust me, people on both sides of that playing field will attempt to suck us in and draw them into use the code and use the authorities for their own purposes, but we do take every effort to remain neutral, and in the end, we want it to be a code-compliant, safe, good place for somebody to continue living. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So explain to me, because obviously some of the complaints I'm sure you've heard is, how can it end up where there's a tenant in a building or apartment without a certificate of occupancy? How can they, logistically, how can that happen?
Well, that should never happen, but in talking with Jen and others, it appears as though it's an issue of terminology. The certificate of occupancy is something that's issued to a structure pursuant to state law under the Michigan Building Code. The building official, when that structure is first constructed and they get final approvals for everything, before it's ever occupied, they need to get a C of O, certificate of occupancy. Now it can be lawfully occupied.
So then would it go by building or apartment?
Both.
Okay, all right.
Now, what we're talking about here is a certificate of compliance for the rental program. That's very different from a C of O, certificate of occupancy. The C of O for that structure was issued the day it was built, the day it was finished. And unless the building official revokes that C of O for some reason, it will remain valid in perpetuity unless something happens to trigger it being revoked, or unless the structure gets destroyed through some natural disaster or fire or what have you. So there may be individual dwelling units that don't have a certificate of compliance with the rental certification program, but guaranteed the C of O, the underlying C of O for that structure and all of its spaces is still valid from when it was originally constructed, because it's never been revoked.
Okay.
We do certify each individual building under your program, and that means the exterior surfaces and structure of the building itself, the interior common areas, the stairway assemblies. The fire marshal will accompany us, and probably, I'm sure, has gone through themselves, looking for, making sure the exit illumination signs and fire extinguishers and whatnot are where they should be, and that they're active and they're current. And we go through and measure each individual space, dwelling unit against the property maintenance code, and we certify it. That's totally separate from the certificate of occupancy for the building under state law. So, very well, you could have an individual unit that doesn't have a current certificate of compliance for the rental program. That doesn't mean it can't lawfully be occupied, because that C of O is still good. I did talk with the building official in anticipation of coming here, and he said, to his knowledge, there have been no property maintenance conditions that currently exist that rise to the level of condemning an individual unit. Now, I've heard the horror stories, and again, nobody should have to live like this. Water leaking through, rugs saturated with water. He said to me, if it was raw sewage, unequivocal condemnation, not safe to be there, owner, fix this immediately and remediate all of the sanitation problems that come along with it. Water happens, it doesn't force people out, it doesn't result in a condemnation, but it is still not a good way to have to live, and nobody should have to live that way. So in those situations, I would also just mention, under the state housing law, anytime a tenant files a complaint with the city about their living conditions, the city is required, regardless of where they're at in the rental certification process, the city is required to respond immediately and investigate it. There's a process in place, and we do that when we receive those complaints. There is a process in place. I don't want to sound as though I'm picking on one party or another in these civil situations. It's not uncommon for landlords to bring up tenant-caused issues when they're trying to evict, and it's not uncommon for tenants to suddenly decide to file complaints on code violations when they're being subject to eviction. So we try to take all that into consideration and be neutral and do what we're charged with doing, which is observe it and measure the condition of the property against the property maintenance code without taking those other things into account.
Any other questions?
So that's where we're at. They're on a tight timeline. Staff says they believe that there is some level of cooperation, but again, we're not taking anybody's word for it. We're going to stay on it and monitor it going forward.
Thank you very much. And hopefully, obviously, people can play this back, because obviously the accusation was we've done absolutely nothing for 30 years. And it's always good to get an update, that it's, there's something going on. To us, that's in the background, because, we're not part of the old daily operation stuff, but thank you for filling us in.
You're welcome.
What's going on here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Dave done?
Dave is done.
Okay, all right.
Jennifer?
Two quick things to report. Tetra Tech is still evaluating the different technologies for the leachate treatment. We're going to be doing an in-depth analysis of costs for operation and long-term life of the equipment, as well as capital costs. So we've been in conversations and having meetings with Kevin about that regularly. And then secondly, the RNG facility is nearing completion. They finished the pipeline installation along Sibley Road and have been doing the restoration there. And they're starting to test equipment. The schedule that we got last meeting that we had was that they would be starting the equipment in October, which is right now, so hopefully that will be progressing well.
Thank you.
All right, so Ohio.
I'll make this very quick. The sewer lighting is getting scheduled. The street sectioning, first part is done, we'll continue with the second part, and we're still continuing with the joint seeding program. That's all I have.
Thank you, Zohar.
All right. That's it for engineering reports.
That's it?
Yes.
Now is the time for other business. Any other business council wants to bring up? Time for a public comment. Anyone wishing to address the mayor and council? This is your time.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Don Genesti.
Hold on, does that mic?
Working? I don't think so.
We can hear you.
Okay. Don Genesti, President of the Library Commission. I just briefly want to address Mayor and Council and the City Manager. There have been rumors going around that we've heard about the Mayor and Council wanting to, wanting to possibly close the library as one of the agreements as far as helping the city out for the fiscal recovery. I would just like to pass out we put together a little informational packet for the library, if I could pass it out to council and the city manager as far as what we're doing. And the numbers on this informational packet are from, thanks, Jen. Numbers are from the yearly statement, state aid report that we have to do every year before we get our money from the state. I also would like to offer that anytime anybody from mayor or the council has any questions concerning what's going on with the library or what we're doing, please feel free to contact either myself or the library director, Azita, and we'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions that you do have. I just want to let the council and city know that we are mobilizing. The commission is really upset by hearing what's going on, possibly with a possible closure of the library. And you will be hearing from us at the council meetings from here until the election. Is there any questions anybody has right now?
Any questions for that?
Not a question,
No.
just a comment. I absolutely love the library. I am so impressed with all of the programs, and I continually email Azita, what a great job you
Well,
guys are all doing. So
we appreciate that, and the reason we're here is we're hearing misinformation coming out
Yes,
as
there's a
far
lot
as
of
how many people are using the library, how many are residents, how many are non-residents. All that information is in that packet with percentages for us and for the other cities and surrounding cities showing who is using the library. So, like I said, at any time, if anybody has any questions, they can contact either myself or Azita, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Don, and I'll just add to this, for those of us who do visit the library regularly, my wife more than me, that just how over the past few years anyway, the service has improved tremendously. The feedback we get in the community is just the number of programs that go on, and most of it for free, for the people who come there.
And it has, in that packet, it has the programs we're doing and assistance we're giving to other people in the community.
Yep.
And the library is a vital connect for the city. If you lose that library, the city is going to lose a lot. Like Mr. Dobek was saying, there's a few jewels in the city, and the library is definitely one of them.
Absolutely, I think we all agree with that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn?
Yeah, Don and the group, the same rumor went around last time when we were making some dramatic cuts. And again, the library came up and spoke very eloquently. Thank you for this information. It would probably be the last thing we would cut before we turn the lights out in the city.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Bill Toll, 17861 Devonshire.
You have to speak up, Bill, I don't think that mic works.
Okay, Bill Toll, 17861 Devonshire. I'm confident that the budget shortfall developed by the city manager is accurate. I don't dispute that at all. I work with Jeff Ford. There are some other options we can look at, I think, in my view, Jeff, that may differ from yours. Again, there was a lot of discussion about the gas plant. It better be up and running in 2024. They went way past their design schedule. And they said we would receive a minimum of $400,000 a year. And like you said earlier, it's not going to be based on RINs, it's going to be based on BTUs. So that's $400,000. Also, part of the shortfall of the $1.5 million was the addition of 2 new officers, one for the airport and one for schools, okay? That's what was indicated. This isn't the time to add 2 more officers on. Number one, it's not going to add to the public safety in this community if one's going to be at the airport. Schools, it may, okay, but that was part of the original one. There's another $320,000. Those 2 alone bring down your $1,540,000 to $822. Now, I'll talk about legal fees briefly. If we're not going to proceed with any of the expansion, whether it be the Eagle approach or any of those, we should be able to draw down those legal fees a little bit. And I estimate it like $110,000. That still leaves them $120,000, I think. And we could reduce the labor relations fee of $122,000, save about $122,500 for labor relations consultant, since we've got a new human resource officer out there. All the contracts we have in place will be settled, and I'm confident that any human resource can handle any kind of grievance. If you just look at those 3, that would bring you down the 822 down to 666, which 2 mills would suffice. Now, what I think you should do is pause it, like you said, Mayor. I think you need to come back, and whether it be 2 mills or 3 mills for a 2-year period of time, okay, until this comes into play, and we see what we're going to receive from the dispensaries, and then you can ask for another extension if it doesn't work. The 10 years bother me, and I'll tell you why it bothers me. I've seen this council totally ignore the Redmond report. He did everything they told us not to do. If they get 4 mills in there, Jeff, excuse me, and you work for these guys, they don't work for you, right? They're not going to follow that guideline. But that's my position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, just to, I know we answer questions, in our current budget, there is not a officer budgeted for the airport or the schools.
No, I didn't say in your current budget, I said in your the budget request of the $1.5 million. Now, we should hold the officers we got that are budgeted.
They're not in that $1.5 million, sir.
I know there's 23 budgeted, but in that $1.5 million, you indicated before, Jeff, that you were going to send.
We're looking at that, but that's not a guarantee.
Well, but you had the money in for it, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And the school officer would have been, there have been participation from the.
Oh, yeah, there would be no officer in this school without participation from the school district.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else?
Hi, Nicole Clark, 18233 Hinton. I'm here for some answers if you guys can give them tonight. If not, I'll take them later. I recently learned that in a 3-year period, not including 22 and 23, the city of Riverview has paid $112,204 to Go Big Multimedia. I was led to believe, along with the rest of the residents and some that sit on this council, that that figure should be $18,000 for 3 years. But it's more than 6 times that amount and nowhere close to what surrounding cities are paying. There are the other fees that the city does pay for to the register, but there have been so many misleading statements on records surrounding these charges. I just want some clarification. Also, in 3 years, not including 22 and 23, the city of Riverview spent just under $2.5 million in legal fees without itemized billing. For what exactly? Side note, Trenton and Wyandotte seem to pay a fraction of what we pay in legal fees. And if our legal fees are itemized, that information isn't shared with the residents. And if they aren't itemized, why? How do they know what to bill us? By looking at the 3 years, it's not a flat rate. As a resident, a homeowner, I'm looking for this council for teamwork, transparency. I don't think the residents are getting what they deserve. There's no transparency. Lack of information breeds doubt and mistrust. Thank you.
I guess I'm gonna let you or, well, if I can handle just think about the whole legal fees, and I'm sure we get.
There's been a request that I'm working on. Okay.
But I will address the River Register, because, again, I don't check Facebook a whole lot anymore, specifically the discussion board, because, Nicole, you're right, there is a lot of rumors and just outright, just have a seat, Darrell, just for a minute, like, so I want to answer Nicole's questions about the register. So, again, it's just, it's more than befuddling to me that the absolute vileness on the discussion board aimed at one of our businesses that has done more for this city than any other business I have, that I can think of, with publishing our legal notices, recreation programs, and stuff like that. So, it'll take a few minutes, but I just want to tell you how the contract works, because to be honest, I don't think a lot of people realize how it works and the in-depth relationship we have with the register. And just on a side note, just to prove, I don't like going into this that much, but just to prove the vileness on that, the discussion board, and clearly it's aimed at my relationship with the paper. And clearly I've been called Kwame Kilpatrick because I give contracts to my best friends. So just to set the record straight, I did not know Will or Sherry Evans from Joe Schmo before we signed the contract with the register. We had several meetings with the former city manager and myself. They had a proposal for us that we really loved, and at that point, even before we signed any contracts, we brought in the school district. So the numbers you're reading out there, obviously you got to have a financial impact, so instead of doing the per year amount, which was about $36,000, I believe, is the contract that we share with the school district. We are the contractee with the paper, and we then bill the school district for half of whatever that we pay. So I don't remember all the numbers, how it works, but roughly it costs each, the school district and the city, about $1,200 a month for 5 pages in the register. So way back in 2018, our budget then, I believe, for publishing our recreation calendars and all the other information we had and our legal notices in the News Herald, from what I remember, were roughly $18,000. But for the school district, because they published a calendar, they publish all their sporting events. Any event going on at the school, they were spending roughly 30 grand for those publications. So we thought, again, it was a no-brainer that we formed this alliance between the school district, the city, and Go Big Multimedia. And what the deal is that each entity purchases 2 pages each month. And then with that, we got 1 page for free. So basically, we share 5 pages a month. So if anybody has looked at the register, especially the one on that, I know I saw it out in front of the desk out there where they are. So I picked it up, just looked through it real quick. It has an enormous amount of Riverview content in there. So, and I think more than any other of their publications. So the shady deal that has been called by the public and some council people here, the shady deal with the register is that I think we got a pretty good deal for the return we get. You can go back and look at your the participation in the recreation events, and I think this played a big role in the library. All the information that gets put in the register has increased the participation in the recreation events and the library. So I look at it all as, I look at anybody who participates in any of these events as obviously the residents, but also a customer of that program. And any business knows there is a cost to acquiring that customer. So if you compare that to what we're spending in the News Herald, and back then, the News Herald, I think, came to more than 100 homes. I'm sure it's less than that now. The cost of acquisition of that customer was extremely high. I don't know what it is now, but I can guarantee you it's a lot smaller because of what we invest in the paper and the enormous amount of people that goes to. Obviously, the coverage in the News Herald, let's just say it comes to 100 homes. I don't know what their circulation is, but instead of putting that high-cost ad in the News Herald, we buy chunks of space in the register every month. So every recreation program, any police department notice, fire department notice, anything special going on, blood drives, anything that we promote, it be a program for participation at a cost or a free program, goes into the register. And again, I don't check Facebook, but I got so many people letting me know what's in there. And it's the cost of, there's things, an extreme cost of the legal fees. And the reference has been made several times that there is no requirement by the state of Michigan for us to put our legal notices in a printed application. That's totally wrong. We are required. And even if it's not at the state level, I believe it's in our charter or somewhere it appears where it's listed where it has to be in a regularly published printed application. So there is no additional cost, or would it not, or would it save us any money if we were failed to do that, put that in the register? Plus, I will look at it as, and you heard the term several times tonight, transparency. This is a perfect, we can be as transparent as we can to 7,000 homes, you can't leave, to 7,000 homes in every business in our community that sees the legal notices and all the advertising. So what is it that, and I saw the inferences, we have to stop doing that. Why would we? We just get accused of not being transparent. What are we trying to hide? Are we trying to hide how people are voting and all that stuff? I don't know. I just think we're on a path to being as transparent as we can. We keep our contract with the paper, and it's clearly, gosh, I'm just trying to think of I don't know what the per page cost is, $900, $950 or something like that. If you go back and look through the registers, and you have to remember, I don't know if anybody got a register here, that they do a great design on designing ads for the recreation department and the library itself. So it's almost a service we get free. And if you take the time to actually look at the paper and absorb what's in it, there's always more than 5 pages of school information in there, city information in there. And with that contract, we had some special stories we needed about the landfill. Anything that's is considered a promotion is something you have to pay for. So if the thought is that we vote, because I understand Facebook says there's at least 3 people on council that would vote to get rid of our contract with the Register, that information has to go somewhere. Our only printed option is the News Herald. And I can guarantee you that, well, okay, Downriver Times, well, it doesn't get delivered here.
Yeah, but you know what?
And this is a time for public input.
We have a
but-
free website, and the News
Okay.
Herald, you have to have a paid subscription.
And that's fine, but the...
And our ad rates are a lot cheaper.
Sue, stop, please. So,
You asked me a question.
I didn't
don't
ask you a
answer.
question. When we end, I will ask you a question.
You act like we don't even exist. We're smaller, but our ad rates are cheaper. We do have store locations,
Okay,
and we have a free website.
Okay.
You guys act like we don't exist. You want to pay more to the News Herald? Go ahead. Jesus.
Well, or we get a better deal at a much bigger paper with a much, probably 100 times circulation.
Our ad rates
Or,
are a lot
so,
less than the one you're.
Sue, I'm not here to argue. Will you please stop?
You haven't even
Sue,
quoted our
Sue,
prices, so you
Sue,
can't.
Stop or I have you removed.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Please. I don't want to do that, Sue. I'm just trying to get my
You
point
haven't even
across.
quoted our prices, so you don't even know what they are.
Sue, it's not about you anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's move on.
Okay, so I'm trying to make the point here, get as mad as you want, but I'm trying to make the point here is that we have a publication that I think does a great job for the city and all the stories that they have. You want to keep it up?
I'm not saying anything.
You're causing a disturbance.
I am not. I wasn't even saying anything. God,
We'll just wait for you to behave.
I wasn't saying anything. I looked back at the clock, okay? Is that a crime now?
Hold on, this is our routine. I think we need to move on.
Okay, we are. So, the whole final point is here is that I think the Register's been taking some unfair heat with the services they provided to the city. The whole point I want to make is that I think it's wrong what's happening to them, as any of our businesses, that I would stand that for if they're taking any type of unjust or unfair criticism or conversations or, those type of things. So, that's really kind of the point I wanted to make, and so.
One more speaker.
Oh, yeah, oh, yes, sir, go ahead, Darren, sorry, I apologize for making you wait, sir.
Oh, it's okay. Y'all remember the $5,000 bill? I'm sorry, I'm Darren Sinset, 17820 Brinson Street, here in Riverdale. Remember the $5,000 bill? Y'all remember that?
No.
We used to have a $5,000 bill. James Madison was on it. You know what James Madison said? The circulation of confidence is better than the circulation of money. Would you agree? Our city needs confidence of where we're going. I sat here and I listened just a while ago and I heard you say something very, very good. I'm going to make it very brief. Quarterly reports. Did y'all get a quarterly report? Council? You're in violation of the state statute. I looked it up. I have it. I won't quote it right now. It's right in front of me. You're in violation. No wonder we've been going downhill. City manager, I appreciate you. You've had to do everything. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you. You work hard to do it. But I heard one thing that keeps echoing in this whole problem. You know what's the biggest expense for the city now? It's not the police department. It's the landfill. Sell it. You and I talked about it, Mr. Mayor, on a motorcycle ride. We talked about that very issue. And they do sell it. Municipalities sell the landfill. That would put us in such a great statute for a city. We could have extra revenue. Your job would be so much easier. And we wouldn't have to worry about our police department, our fire department. But why do we keep holding on to it? For what reason? You can reserve, I looked it up, the state of Michigan, you can reserve the mineral rights. So we can still get the $400,000 for eternity. That's how long that mineral rights are reserved. We're sitting on a gold mine. But the problem is we're sitting on it, and it's costing us money. Some people don't want to sell it because somebody else is going to have it, and they're going to change everything. We set the standards of what the rules are going to be in our city, just like you hold the building, same way, do the same thing with the landfill. Make them build a wall around it where nothing will blow. The problem is we're holding on to something that's gonna put us deeper in debt every year, and we know we're running out of time. My request is, let's find somebody. I know a couple companies right now, because they bought it off my dad's farm. They have the money to do it, and they have to do it in compliance with what's going on. DEQ already qualified that property. And I'm gonna say something that people probably don't like. Sell the golf course with it. Let's just move on and take the 300 million and put it in the bank, and we'll be able to have a better city. Quit holding on to something that's going down. You sell a car when it starts breaking down, right? You start getting rid of it. We're holding on to something that we shouldn't be holding on to anymore. We did a good job for a while. The council, y'all have to have quarterly reports. You can't make decisions without them. You're making a lie of a decision when you don't have a quarterly report to look at. And this has been going on for too many years. And the people that did that, well, the state should be looking into them, because they violated the laws, the statutes. It's illegal. Because in that quarterly report, it says very clearly that if we're not meeting it, the council has a right to take things down. That's when you have a quarterly report, not an annual report. I care about the city, and I know I say some things that I'm brushing against everything, but listen, I care about the city. I want to see it prosper. We're sitting on a gold mine, but the problem is, you're sitting on stuff that you're, an antique that's sitting there that's not going to pay off, and we know the inroad for us holding it is not good. Any thoughts? I mean, towards
Yeah, I'll say I agree with you, and obviously we this was probably a few years ago, we put the landfill up, and golf course, for requests for proposals, and didn't get any because people knew we weren't serious.
You weren't serious.
So, and I think you're making my point, and I totally agree with this. That's one of the options we have to look at. I mean, it's those types of things that council and Jeff have to, and it has to be serious this time.
Yeah.
And so we know that, and obviously we could put into a good financial position, but with that, you give up control. So it'd be nice if you build a big cement wall, like, the expressways around it, but I don't know.
You can demand it.
But that's an option that has to be seriously considered,
May I interrupt you for a second? Don't wait until we're across a barrel where they're going to have us over a barrel. Let's make a decision before we're in desperation, is what I'm trying to say. We're not in desperation yet. So let's not wait too much longer.
Right.
Because if you go too far, they're going to devalue it. You might as well have Iraqi currency right now. That's what I'm getting at. It's the dinar, whatever. But it's, who knows, that might change with all what's going on in the Middle East now. But the thing is, for us as a city, I want to make his job easier. I don't want to make it more difficult. That's why I keep bringing this up and stuff. God bless you. And let's pray for Israel, because that's really a terrible situation going on.
Thank you. Councilman Norton.
I voted on the RFP for the landfill. When you say serious, I was serious with were we not serious for selling it?
We were serious, but most people didn't take it that way. They, because the perception was we just did that, so we could get the expansion, that we could support the expansion if they looked at we were selling.
That's not a true statement.
Well, I think
Yeah,
that.
it is.
No, I'm not saying your statement.
Yes.
I'm not saying his statement. I'm saying
People.
Yeah.
we put it up.
Yeah, so obviously our whole world has changed now. So there will be a serious, obviously council's gonna have to discuss this and talk about it. But there's the issues ahead of us require big changes. This would be a big change, and it's the one that we really have to evaluate and look at. So I don't know how that works with the royalties we get and the mineral rights and those kinds of things, but that's all options available. So, and with the gas plan and other changes, makes the landfill much more valuable to someone else. So that's just that's a good point. If we can relieve ourselves of that, but then.
But this body was serious about going out for an RFP.
Well, we're serious for going out. I don't think well, obviously, we didn't get any responses, so I don't think the business world took us serious.
Your Honor, you're correct. We were serious about putting it out. We did put it out, but we did not get any inquiries at all.
They watch public meetings.
Yeah, it was a lot of public talk at the time, so, I mean, that's one of the options that we have to look at, and obviously, we will. So, now is your time if you want to speak as a member of the public, Sue.
I'd like to talk to you privately afterwards.
No, that's not going to happen.
Because you had no right.
That's not going to happen.
Well, then here it is.
Okay.
Why the heck do you ignore the Downriver Sunday Times like it doesn't exist? You have never priced us out for ads. We have a free website, whereas the News Herald makes people pay a subscription. Otherwise, you hit a subscription paywall. You've never priced us out, and you said that your little, your little newspaper that you rent 5 pages from is the cheapest out there, but you have never
That little
priced us out.
newspaper has, do you have a circulation in Riverview of 7,000?
No, we don't, but
Okay,
you're.
I was just curious.
Yeah, We don't, but we have a free website, and most people get their news online. And those little icons that you have on your phone, the news services, excuse me, will you please listen to me?
I am listening.
Okay, if you know those little icons on your smartphone that give you news, those services pick up our articles, but they don't pick up the articles from the News Herald because they have a subscription paywall. And if you're not a subscriber, you click on that article and you don't get to read it, but you can read all of our articles. Plus, like for Dearborn, we have Chamber Chatter. They get an ad for a whole page. You guys could do that, but you have never asked us to bid on any of your ads, and we could do it at a very good price, and you could get those online. And you don't have to drop it off and mail it to every house, but you've never asked us for a quote. You act like we don't exist. I'm the only reporter that ever shows up at your meetings. And you treat the Downriver Sunday Times like we don't exist. We don't have a lot of print copies, but we're online and we're free, and we get picked up by the news services.
And you can go log in your 5 minutes, because here's the point is, you have a circulation of, how many homes is the Downriver Sunday Times delivered in the city of Riverview?
I mail probably a few dozen.
A few dozen, okay.
But it's free online, and it's in stores.
Okay, and here's my long list of seniors at Atria, King Haven, American House, the Senior Center, which 90% are online. They're a major, what do you call it? They're a major customer, or whatever you want to do.
Are you saying they're not online? Are you saying they're not
I am.
online?
I'm saying a majority of them are not online.
I'm considered a senior because of my age, and I'm online, and most of the people that I know that are 10, 15 years older than me are online. I see a lot of people in the audience here who...
Well, look at this young man right here. Okay, that's kind of our point. And
You have a smartphone?
and people love the term transparency. We're trying, and I know we get accused of not being transparent. We do the best we can on being transparent to a widest community that we can. Obviously, it's online with our website, Facebook. It's in hard copy with the Register and whatever stories appear in yours and in the News Herald. I don't choose to ignore your paper. I'm just going to the ones I'm most familiar with. I'm not
The Register,
familiar with yours.
as a marketing, I've got a master's in marketing, and the Register sounds like a great solution for your paper. If I was in your seat and Dobek's seat, I think using a publication like the Register would be great to advertise the library programs, the rec programs, and things like that.
And that's
What
we
I'm
do.
saying is, don't ignore the Downriver Sunday Times. Ask us to quote on your ads, and when you're up here talking about Register and the News Herald, don't act like we don't exist. Okay, we do, and you've never asked us to quote on any of your ads or legal announcements, so don't say that you have. Okay. Thank you.
You're more than, well, next time we do that, you're more than free to bid.
Well, send us an RFQ.
Anybody else?
Ken Kyleman, 20243 Coachwood. I had some prepared remarks, but considering the hour, I'm going to set those aside for a future date and just make some comments based on the topic at hand here. And I know that when I speak, I'm not memorable or persuasive, but at the 2 public hearings, I was one of the people to speak in favor of the millage. And tonight, and at those times, I think I was in a minority, and tonight, I want to speak in favor of the millage again. And I think probably it appears that I'm in the minority again. But I think one of the things that really needs to be considered is the question that you asked earlier, Mayor, what's the hurry? And I wouldn't characterize the timeline here as being in a hurry, but I think there's a timeline we have to look at. Because 6 months from now, the first week in April, our city charter requires our city manager to present a balanced budget. And if we don't have those taxes approved by then, the budget he presents is going to find there's a big shortfall in revenues that's going to require reductions in services, even taking into consideration some of the things that are being presented by Mr. Toll. There's not enough there. And so you think the library people are going to be upset now? That's a requirement by the charter, and I know you all want to live up to the charter all the time for everything. That's something that Jeff is going to have to do. And so it's astounding to me. We're saying that we're afraid that if we go ahead with this and we all get on the same side and push this and educate people and inform them, because I think a lot of it is just ignorance and mistrust. And if we get past the ignorance and the mistrust, people are going to support this. But if it fails, we're no different now boat than we would be then. No millage. And Jeff would have to come and present a balanced budget showing the cuts. And frankly, there's not enough time. We talked today, or I heard you say, well, in April we'll consider this. Well, if in April you decide to go with a millage, when are you going to educate people for that? When then will the election take place? And when will the revenue start to come in? And that doesn't change the problem that the budget that has to be presented in April and then is voted on subsequently has to have those cuts, because you can't guarantee that revenue. You're not going to be able to guarantee any marijuana revenue, and I don't know what kind of revenue you're going to have from the gas plants. So I think it's important that you go ahead and have the vote and see if it passes. And if it passes, well, as our city manager said, well, that first year it's probably going to be 4 mills, but you're not going to have to make all those cuts you're talking about. But if it doesn't, the cuts are coming. The people are going to be upset, and it's going to get a lot more rowdy than it's been. And Mr. Mayor, you had pushed something on. You had written something on something I got in the mail, and I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. You said that you like to hire good people and take their advice. I think we've hired a good person. I think we need to take his advice. We ought to all get onto the same page, and we ought to support that the best that we can, and not give a confusing signal about it, but inform the people, educate them, and let us go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Jerry Coyne, 18160 Brentwood Drive. I think it was the last study session I was at when the mayor pro temp was running it. I asked if there was a state statute that required that meeting minutes or anything of the sort be published in a physical paper. Nobody knew the answer to it. I can't prove something that's not written down, right? Like, there's no law saying you can go order pizza on a Thursday night. You can just do it because there's no statute against it. There's no statute requiring the city publish anything in a paper. I found a statute in the Michigan compiled law for a village, which we're not, so that's not relevant to us, and there are different ways around doing that. But you can publish this online. You know, I remember in the early 90s when I was in school, teachers said, you know, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket. Well, I hate to tell you, but they lied. I can do more than what a TI-90 can do on this. I can also get news from all over the world on this and all sorts of stuff. And for the few folks that don't have a smartphone, I mean, I'm sure the city can print it up or leave it at City Hall or the library. I'm sure there's a way to reasonably accommodate them. But if the city's talking about cutting costs, look, I know it's a generational thing, but it's not 1983 anymore. People don't read the paper. It's the cable news, the corporate press, newspapers, local. They're all dying. They're dinosaurs, all of them. That's reality. They're not even going to be around in 5 or 10 years from now, 10 max. So if we're looking to save money, that's one thing that we can do. And before anyone says it's only $6,000, well, that's still a lot of money to a lot of people. So I would consider cutting it. And if it's in the city charter, since a lot of things in the city charter aren't followed anyway, I mean, heck, our city charter is bigger than the Constitution of this country. Well, if it's not followed, then we can try to change it, or, God forbid, we ignore it like certain other things are. So anyway, that's a good way to save money. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just add, maybe it's time we get an opinion from a city attorney, but I'm still convinced that we are required by law to publish in a printed publication. And if it's up for debate, it's up for debate, but it's either one or the other. We get
It's in the charter.
In the city charter?
Yes.
Okay, so even if it's not in the Michigan civil law, that's in our charter that we publish our legal minutes, whatever they're called, in a written publication.
Your Honor, we did an amendment to that, where we went out to the vote of the people, that we did not have to have a legal publication of the minutes.
Okay.
We have to post it on bulletin boards, and on our city website, and on cable, and that's what we do. This added bit that I add to the Review Register are for those senior citizens who say, I don't read the internet, I don't do this. So I put those minutes on to show them where the money's being spent in the city. It's a short set of minutes. I mean, it's
You mean in your grand effort to be as transparent as you can?
Pardon?
In your effort to be as transparent as you can.
As I can.
So, and this would probably be a question for you, Jeff, is, say we didn't publish those meeting minutes in the register, would we save any money? Because those are in addition to everything else that goes in there.
Well, I can't.
Okay, so
Give me some time.
Okay, fine. It's probably more of a rhetorical question, but the point is, even if the minute, this is my opinion, council can agree or disagree, the minute we stop publishing the minutes and the legal notices in any paper, we're going to be accused of trying to hide something. You've got to be hiding something. Why would you do that? So that's, I'm just tired of being accused of, I'm not transparent.
Not gonna change it.
So
It's not gonna stop.
I get
It's not
it.
gonna stop.
So,
Let's move.
but I totally agree with Sue, and she's gone. I think we have a measurable amount of people in our city that aren't on the internet. I mean, I get feedback all the time from SEMCOG, where we have chunks of the part of our city that has no internet, there's no coverage. Now, I think, fortunately for us, our senior citizens, I think it's a choice for them. They have the ability, if they want to go online, they can, but they don't. They read the paper. And I'm sure, Zita, I'm going to put pressure on you too, but I've heard stories of and seen in the library where actually people cut out things from the register saying, I saw this in the register about this program, I want to sign up. I don't know if they do that in the rec department too, but there's, the way the register is set up, there's individual ads almost for each program. So people cut that out, they bring it in. And I've said before is, not to want to beat this whole thing, is there's usually a page full of information, cut it out, put it on the side of your fridge. You won't miss anything for the next month and a half. So that's kind of what my point was with the register, and Sue wasn't here to hear it, but oh well, she'll watch the video, I'm sure. Anybody else? Sorry, I thought we were done. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I know, it's late and I wasn't gonna say anything, but Brian Webb, 20271 Maplewood. So the Riverview Community Neighborhood Watches had reports that there were break-ins and not even break-ins. Cars are being left unlocked and people are pulling the handle and going through and taking items out. And there was a report also in the forest of a possible break-in where somebody noticed that there was a brick underneath their window and the door had been pried open. So there is possibly more crime going on in the subdivisions. And I wanted to thank the chief. I had reached out to him and said that we've been noticing these things, and that's part of the interaction between the Neighborhood Watch and the police department, is that we bring forward crimes to them, and then they help us out by increasing patrols. So I want to thank you for that response. And he had already taken that action and increased patrol before I even reached out to him, so I wanted to thank the chief for that. A separate item is, I just want clarification on the money spent for the register. So we $6,000 is what the council approved, and that's for distribution,
Okay,
correct?
let's stop you right there. I don't know where that dollar amount came from. I have no clue
The
where it came
council
from.
approved $6,000 for the register.
Where and when? Just show me.
Wasn't there a vote
Show me
There was a
something.
vote for spending that money from the
No,
city
that,
for
that's a
$6,000.
Facebook fact. It's not
No,
a
I was
real
at a
fact.
meeting where the council approved $6,000 for the register.
You're gonna have to show me the meeting minutes or the video, because I'm not aware.
So we don't, the city doesn't pay anything except for ads.
We purchase, along with the school system, together we purchase 5 pages every month. $1,200 a month for those, we pay for the 5 pages. The school pays the other $1,200. And we fill those pages with ads from the recreation department, the library, any other special notices. I'll tell you right now, and to be totally transparent, not one penny is sent to provide an ad for me. That's the accusation on Facebook.
I'm not here-
Go ahead, Brian, I want to take it.
Yeah, I'm not here, I mean, you had the long spiel about everything, and I just want to make sure I'm clear and I understand. It sounded like Nicole had mentioned there was several thousands of dollars, $36,000 I think annually, or a total of $118. Okay, but
I
was in a meeting where Will and Sherry was there.
The $36,000 is between both entities.
Right. I'm not saying the city just spent that, so that amount of money is being given to the register from entities.
It's not given to them, we purchase space.
Okay, it is being paid to, whether it's physically given to them or transferred electronically, it's given to them for ads. But when we renewed the contract with them, correct? Will and Sherry were here in the audience, and council voted to renew the contract.
Yeah.
Was there any money tied behind renewal of that contract?
It was extension of a contract we've had since 2018.
Okay.
So there's no new money from the original contract.
What was the original contract amount?
I believe it was, 30, I don't remember, it was either 18 each, so it'd been 36, I think, about 36 grand.
I don't know.
For 6 years?
It was, the first contract was for 2 years, and then we renewed it for 3, and then we just recently, with full council support, renewed it again for another 3 years. I think we're 3/4 of a year into that 3-year extension.
And what was that fee that we renewed?
The fee was the original fee, the $1,200 a month.
Are you sure on that?
I am sure on that. It's even in the contract, there was no change in the cost over those, and it would be till 2026. It'd be the same thing in 2026 as it was in 2018. So I'm trying to find out what's shady about that.
But that 1,200, that's us and the
I'm not
school.
saying anything shady, I'm just trying to understand where the numbers are
That's
coming from.
we pay about 18 grand a year, so I don't know where the 6,000 is coming from. And that 18,000 is, like I said earlier, up in 2018, that was double-digit increase in those publishing costs. Those costs haven't risen since 2018 with our contract with the Register.
Okay.
Not my contract with the Register, the city of Riverview, which council approves.
So the city of Riverview's contract is essentially $1,200 a month?
Well, basically $1,200 a month.
Okay.
And if, just to use this month's paper as an example, I know Sue's not here to hear this, but I don't really care. Take the number of ads in the paper, count them between the city and the school, and I guarantee you there'll be more than 5 pages worth of stuff, because that's what the Riverview Register does for us. You take all those pages, you divide that by a quarter-page ad, and it's got to be somewhere around the average cost, $50 for a quarter page. That's unheard of. That's what we pay, roughly $50 a quarter-page ad.
Okay, so as a resident, now I understand, we're essentially paying $1,200 a month for that contract, then the city and the school both together purchase ads for activities, rec and all that
Well,
stuff.
we buy the space, and then we also provide them what the ad is going to be. Or it's either an ad or a special story, some promotion or whatever.
But we don't pay them twice.
Well, we don't pay them twice. But a benefit we get from that is we get a professionally designed ad for a dance program in the recreation department, or a professionally designed ad for something at the library. Or we assist them with any special notices from the police department or the fire department. Those are services you wouldn't get from any other paper without paying bigger bucks for.
Okay, I'm not knocking them, I just want to
No,
make sure I
I
understand.
love the questions. This has to be said.
When Dean just said, Councilman Workman just said we don't pay him twice, so that $1,200, whenever we put those 5-page ads, we don't pay any more advertising fees on top.
That's it. Now, and I've learned to say never say never. There have been times when we wanted certain information in the paper that we paid for.
That was over and above the 5.
Over and above the 5 pages. So I'll be honest, with one of them was the information we wanted to get about the landfill. I think we may have paid some for that to make sure that was whatever space it took up, or maybe we did it to get it on the front page. There was a cost to that, so, but I mean, in general, it's $1,200 a month, and we get basically 2.5 pages. And I think, I don't know this, I could be wrong, I don't run their business, I just dealt with them a lot. That it's gotta be like $900 or $950 a page. So we get, so just say it's 900, make it easier, that's $2,700 if we were just to purchase that one page ad. We get it for $1,200. Because of, obviously, you know, the increased quantity, you get a discount.
Right.
And Your Honor, just so it's clear, the stories that they do, that's not our ads or our stories, those are just community stories. That does not count against our pages.
Correct.
So if they cover your Neighborhood Watch Night Out, they do a page story on that with photos of your group and the police, and that's not a charge, because they're writing that article. The fishing derby, we didn't pay for that. So I just want to make sure that you understand that those stories, we don't pay for.
Right. And just.
Community stories.
I'm glad you said that, and you're probably more aware of this than Brian is, because when we were in negotiations with them, you know, we asked a ton of questions, and one of them, the former city manager asked was, well, what do you determine as a story, and what's a promotion type stuff, and what information do you pay to get in there? So the definition was pretty simple. If it's, I'll call it a story before the event, that's a promotion. So that if you're advertising for an event where people have to pay to come to, or if you just want people to come, that's a promotion that you pay for. The story about the event is, you know, that's free. That's not part of our space. So obviously the fishing derby, stories about Summerfest are just, you know, stories that any paper would print. But an advertising promoting Summerfest is an ad, that's something we would have to pay for. So there is a definition here.
Okay, and then if I threw your chair to Jeff. So for the wetlands on the 35 acres that's going to possibly go for a bid, where are we at with getting those proposals?
I have the proposals for the wetlands. I still don't have all the proposals for the appraisals. The appraisals have to be, I have authority to sign a certain dollar amount for the wetlands proposals, but the appraisal fees will be much higher than I'm authorized to do, so they will have to come back to council to make sure that they want to get the appraisals out.
Now, are these proposals for the work that would be done to remediate or remove the wetlands, or are these proposals for?
These are just identifying the wetlands that would have to be remediated. What my understanding is any developer is going to want to know how many acres or how much area of wetlands have to be remediated before they pitch what they would potentially do with that land, because it has a real impact on what they have to do. Not saying they can't do it there, but they have to remediate that wetland somewhere else, and they've got to find that land somewhere.
So now that you have the proposals, then they would go through and do a survey and figure out what the wetlands are there. So that's going to take some more time, so we're...
45 days, once it's signed and out, so...
Okay, so we're looking towards the end of the year, beginning of next year.
Yeah, and, you know, the appraisals, I don't know. I'm still waiting. Dave has been working with me, getting some appraisal firms.
Okay.
And again, you know, I think that I've conveyed to council, and I think they're really open about it, is we won't decide what goes there. We'll let people pitch what they want to put there, and then council can review it and also decide. You know, there's going to be a lot of things, right? The wetlands remediation, the zoning, whatever.
Absolutely.
I have no...
But we're past landfill expansion that we were waiting to hear yes or no on, because some of the golf course is going to have to be moved into that area.
Correct.
We're past that.
Yeah.
But are we waiting until the 2030 vision before we make a move?
I'm getting the wetlands proposal signed, and I want to get the appraisals done. Personally, I come from a place where they do everything up front. They put it all done in a binder, so when there's time to go, you take the binder off the shelf and you say, here you go. All the dots are dotted, the Ts are crossed, so tell me what you want to do, because here's the binder that says we're ready to go.
But I think to Brian's point is, we may not have to wait for the 2030. If
Correct.
If you're ready, you
Correct.
can make the decision, go then, or make it.
I mean, there was some big talk about what, the 38 acres and the 9 acres on Grange and this cell tower, do we, I don't know, but, and I think that the city's gonna need assets, and as I said earlier, the sales of that property would help,
Yeah, that's excellent foresight to have that information ready to go. And so, and then the last question I have, and I want to applaud you all for at least rethinking this, and I'm not saying whether I'm for or against the millage. I've been saying in both of the study sessions, have you done your due diligences? Have you looked at option A, B, and C? And we knew that A was increasing or asking for the 4 mills. B was the Headley override, and C was kind of up in the air, but we thought it was either cuts or, as you said today, doing nothing. So could you share with us now, I also talked to the assessor and understand what the Headley override is. I had come forward to you, the council, and asked if you could find out what the original millage was, because the override
20
was
mills,
back.
the operating mills were 20 mills. We're currently, our operating mill is at 6.2, so I think I told you 3.85 is the Headley
Very
override.
close to the 4. So even if we took that option, we'd be getting 4 mills, but that, once you do that override, it's forever. It's not like this where we're asking for 4 for 10 years.
Correct.
Which is still a long period of time, don't get me wrong.
It's
I wish
forever,
we
and
were
then
for a short period.
could be reduced over time, correct?
It could be, it could be. It could be capped off again at a certain amount of time, but I'm not an assessor. I don't know, I'm telling you what I know. I know the 3.85 would be at least 7 years, I think.
As I understand from Mr. Dunlop, our assessor, he said it would be, once it's overridden, then it's locked. Play games, but I think you were back there saying, no, that it's possible to change it, so.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, I know.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we're done. Thank you, everybody.
Can I say?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay.
Who do you-